We'll start the meeting, okay, and the first item is Jody is just going to talk to us a little bit about the questions. Everybody has the questions, 3 sets of questions. Those are the things we have to answer and grade at the end of the day. And once it, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I think we can hear each other. If you review the questions and you review the material that they provided us, you will find that all the answers are in writing.
Yeah, so we don't have to ask questions. You can ask, after they make their presentation, we can add whatever questions we want there, you know.
Okay, so we're not going through this?
No, save time, no, because some people have to work in the morning and all that. So when they finish their presentation, we'll have an opportunity to ask whatever question we want, follow up, whatever, and then we'll grade those, and then we'll have the second interview at 7:30.
Another point.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be grading the sales pitch we're going to get tonight, since it's no different than what we have in front of us already. I think we should listen to the sales pitch, because that's all it is.
Yeah.
Formulate some general opinions, take some notes if we wish, but I think what we need to evaluate most importantly is their contract. And that is, everybody's got a prepared contract.
Yeah.
We're not going to draw the contract.
No.
They're going to draw. They have a standardized contract.
Yeah. If I could say something, I've talked to, like I said, town council and town administrator at length. We have to ask, we have to rate the same questions for each firm, but the contract is being developed now by town council, and he'll be giving us a copy of the contract.
You're saying that the town council is developing the contract?
Yes, it's a standard
we
contract.
We are the only ones who understand what we want in that contract, not town council.
Well, we can add things, of course.
I'm sorry.
We can add things, but, you know, he's the guy that develops the contract.
Every contractor that you've ever dealt with presents you with a contract. These people will have a standardized contract. My suggestion is to ask them at the end of their presentation to please submit what they're going to do for that little price in the envelope. Then we get to evaluate the contract, what they're offering to do for that price. We formulate an opinion as to what we think is the best. We're going to find things in the contract we don't want done and things that aren't in the contract, because we are the experts as to what should be in the contract.
I'll ask them to do that. And also town council, they have to do what's right for the town. So they've done this a million times. They're gonna draft a contract. We can ask them some of the elements, and then tomorrow at 2 o'clock, you'll be meeting. If you want to go to the town hall, they'll open up the envelope. Hopefully the price will be under $50,000.
How are you going to evaluate each of these contractors without having their contract, what they're proposing to do?
Donato, that's an easy one. That's up to town council and the administrator.
It isn't up to town council. Well, we are the guys that are contracted.
The committee can vote on that, but I'm giving you my recommendation. I'm going to ask them if they have some type of a contract that they can provide. We'll give it to town council and the administrator.
No, we need to then evaluate the contents
Well,
of
I don't think we can do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think we've got a pretty good guide from their proposal as to what their scope of service is going to be. That's my view anyway. When I'm reading this, I have a pretty good guide as to what it is. Pretty standard scope of service. There are a couple of tweaks in here and there that probably could improve them, but I was happy with what I read as far as the professionalism of the scope, and so I think we could flesh this out. If you want to say it's a sales pitch, well, it's also letting the community, since you're on cable, know what these firms are going to do for the money we're paying them, and I think it's a pretty important job they've been trusted. So.
And the selectmen do this all the time. They have all kinds of contractual agreements, and town council writes everything up. And they look at it, and I'm going to ask them if they can provide something to us, but then it's up to town council and the administrator to decide what's the best.
We have to be required by the bylaw to have certain things in that contract to be evaluated. Neither the contractor may know that, and we've developed a job description with 100 items in it. Each one of those has got to be evaluated by the contractor.
They're not.
And each one of them must be in the contract.
The only thing I'm saying, I want the committee to do what's right, we're going in the right direction, and the final decisions will be made by, if town council says we can't do it that way, then we're not gonna do it. But I will ask them to submit something. Just a couple of other items. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock in Rick Filani's office, I think I sent everybody an email. The next meeting will be in a couple of weeks because of the holiday and people are on vacation and all that, okay? All right. Jody, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. So I know that we have the proposals and we can compare them as we would, but I think this is just, I think that we need to explore because we need to not only knowing what's in there and having them now present to us information that has to determine how the chosen group gets to the end result. We have to be able to score that. We may have all read through all the proposals, but we haven't scored any of that information. And I think that's part of this presentation is going to do. And that's kind of how these questions came up. We take notes if you like. The rating scale, Maureen was nice enough to put together for us. And you can have an initial rating, and then after you hear a second or the third group, you might want to change your rating and compare one to the other.
Sure.
But we have 3 different sheets. Then Maureen's going to take these at the end of the evening, and she'll tackle them all tomorrow.
Yep. And I think the process is pretty solid. I mean, I don't know if many towns do it like this, but this is pretty solid. We have 2 attorneys involved. We have Maureen. I want to thank Maureen for all the work that she's done. And also a valuable member, Jody, who's done a tremendous amount of work. Okay?
So presentations, we're not going to be asking these specific questions, but you're going to be garnering information
Sure.
that's coming through the presentations that we can make notations of, or any other things that you want to make notations of.
And I think, like Eddie said, I've gone through each one of them 6 times. I wrote down notes, and I have a pretty good idea. And I think once the presentation, we'll also have, I've asked everybody for hard copies, so we can keep that. And then we do the best we can, and then we'll see what happens. Okay? Maureen, can you grab John Brooks and Kurt? John Brooks and Kurt. Yeah, Harvard. This is Harvard Group International.
Who's up first?
Harvard Group International. 6:30. John Brooks, Kurt, this is the committee. I want you to meet Dr. Heller, far left, David Brutch, Donato Nero, Jody Mosiah, Michael Pighetti, Chris Moran, Ed Bertarelli, Chris Fritz, and myself. We want to thank you for the report. We want to wish you well. The guidelines, we have about an hour, 20-minute presentation, and there'll be questions from the committee.
Okay.
And we'll see how it goes, but we want to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And good luck, like I said.
Okay. Well,
And John, make sure you concentrate on those 11 questions. Besides the presentation.
first of all, I wanted to say thank you for inviting us as well. We appreciate, first of all, your hospitality. We appreciate that. And we've had a chance to ride around town, and you've got a great town Milford. I'm a kind of a history buff, and so is Curtis, so we really enjoyed that. So we, again, thank you very much for the invitation, and we hope that we'll be able to partner with you in this search. Harvard Group International is who we represent, and Harvard Group's been around for about 20 years now. And Harvard Group has done searches in a lot of different industries. Of course, one of the things that we really are, and especially Kurt and I, have excelled in is federal, state, municipal government searches, law enforcement searches, and so on. And so we are, we've worked in doing searches at all different levels, the chief of police, working in Department of Public Safety, federal agencies and so on, helping with particular positions, as well as other aspects of consulting too. So we have quite a reach in a lot of different areas, but Chief of Police is something that we both have a lot of experience in. As we go through this, we'll tell you more. The other thing I will tell you is that, as you mentioned, Dino, there's 11 questions. You'll notice in your packet there's a PowerPoint, and at the end of that PowerPoint section, there's 2 pages of where your questions were submitted, and we put in direct answers to those as well. We're going to answer them in the presentation. We're going to do that too, but we do have the more direct answers for you because we know that when you're done, you're going to grade and want to take some notes and things, and so we want to make sure we did that as well as we're going through in a 20-minute presentation. There's a lot to cover. One of the things that we look at as a leadership pipeline challenge. In a lot of different fields, there's always a challenge of leadership, and law enforcement is no different, especially today. There are a lot of different challenges that are in law enforcement, and we've seen that, we've experienced that personally, having both worked in the criminal justice field and in both law enforcement, court systems, and so on. And so there's a lot of different things going on now, and so what we focus on in Harvard Group is obviously we want to get you the most talented, the most talented individuals in here. We want to talk about, through this presentation, about retaining those individuals as well. We understand too the importance of the cultural and community fit. That is very critical, we know, in any search. And in the 20 some odd years I've been in human resources, in the search field as well, I can tell you that that's one of the big things we always look at, is that cultural and organizational fit is, sometimes equally, if not more important in terms of positions, especially in chief of police because of their level. We really want to have you be inclusive in our process, and we will talk a little bit about what we do, but that's important to us as well, that you are actively engaged throughout the whole process if you hire us as a firm. So from A to Z, the entire life cycle of the recruitment process, you will be involved in that. We do a lot of different things to get you involved, and we want to share that with you. One of the things that we take pride in is the 30-day search. Having been in human resources for a long time, and a lot of my colleagues, and as Kurt as well, we know that a lot of times things can get slowed down in the process of hiring. It happens, and we get frustrated, and we have a process. Our process is now where we can put people in front of you, your top candidates, within 30 days if you want that. So that's one of the things that we can guarantee to you, is that we will get you a top 2% within the 30-day time frame. Now, we understand that may not work for you. You may say, well, we need 60 days or whatever. But we get that because it's hard to get people together and so on. But we can work expeditiously for you. We can work very quickly in getting those. A lot of that has to do with our networks and things that we're going to be discussing with you. But as I mentioned, that top 2% is what we look at. We know that there's a lot of people that are going to apply for this position, especially if we do a national search. And so there's going to be a lot of different skill sets there. We look at the top 2%, and we don't just look at chiefs of police and those types of things. We're looking at people with well-rounded, successful law enforcement careers, people who are in that top end, who have had success and want to come to a community like Milford and want in this role. And so that is something that we know is very important. It's not just about what's on paper there, do they look great. It's about really engaging with those individuals, making sure that we have a good profile of what you want, and then when we're looking for these individuals, we can get that top 2%. We guarantee our performance. We guarantee so much. We guarantee the people we put forward to you as well. When we put our candidates forward, we work with them and develop them too before we put them forward in front of you. We do very thorough research from our recruiters, from our managing directors. We have teams that can work on this. We make sure before you have the candidates you want in front of you that we have thoroughly vetted those candidates. And we have processes to do that, to make sure that they are exactly what you want for your next chief of police. We focus on key clients, and you know, a lot of times when we do presentations, we talk about that from the corporate perspective, but, you know, Kurt and I have had conversations about, you know, it's very important to us that when we go and engage and we come and do a presentation like this, that we know we can do it, that this is, we understand the client and what their needs are. And so when we saw your RFP and given our backgrounds and what we do, we immediately said, you know, this is something we need to do because we've been there. We don't just understand law enforcement and chief of police, but we also understand city government. And that's going to be become a little bit clearer here in a little while as well. But we have the municipal expertise as well as corporate expertise and all of those things that we bring to the table. So we want, that's the thing I will tell you is that we, you know, we want to make sure that we are engaged with you fully. So I'm going to turn this over to Kurt now that you talk a little bit about
Hold the clicker. You go ahead, hold it up.
You want to do the clicker? Okay.
Yeah. So this is going to be our first law enforcement search for the chief of police in Massachusetts. Done several others in several other states. Been actively involved in law enforcement for years, from command staff level all the way down for about 20 years. This is our first one in the state of Massachusetts. Now, with that being said, our success rate for candidate placement for the 3 to 5 finalists has been over 96% successful. The 4% that were not selected for permanent placement were due to positions being placed on hold, budgetary constraints, or something along that line. First, the 5-year retention, 100%, okay, of the folks that we slate forward for these positions. 10 years is 92%. Go ahead, John. So the process that we go through, we start with the needs assessment. We look at your needs, the city government's needs, the constituents, the citizens of Milford. We look at the needs of the agency and the needs of the community, and we figure out what set of skills does that chief of police need? What exactly do we want to put forth in this leadership and in this department? Then we look at the position specification. We want to outline the responsibilities of the position, the qualifications. You know, we want to be very specific about this. We want to attract a certain type of candidate. So, you know, one that's beneficial to y'all, one that's beneficial to the community and to the police department. We want to do our research once we figured out that position. All right, we have a research team. We're going to have relevant industry expertise. That's going to be myself along with a few others. I'll get into some of my background here shortly. We're going to look at candidate identification. We're going to make selective calls to sources and prospects to identify, qualify, and attract the best-in-class candidates. You know, we're going to talk about how many we might get that apply for this position, but we're going to talk about what we're looking for. Candidate interviews and evaluation. Managing director is going to evaluate each candidate on the basis of experience and cultural fit. Cultural fit is important to us. It should be important to the community, okay? Cultures are different. Michigan, Georgia, Florida, California, Massachusetts. All right, we want to make sure this person is a cultural fit in your community. And then we're going to look at candidate presentation. Confidential written reports are submitted for 3 to 5 best in class. Go ahead, John. All right, so in recruiting for the search, we're going to post advertisements to major job boards and social media. We have a ton of law enforcement networks out there, okay? We have municipal associations and listservs. I'll go back to some of the stuff we've used before that I'm familiar with. Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police in Massachusetts has one as well. We're going to use that. You know, each state, if we want to do a national search, we'll reach out to each one of these association job posting boards. We're going to put it out there. Listservs, like the Disaster Resilient Universities Network. All right, these are folks that are chiefs of police, directors of public safety. They are emergency management directors. They network all together. I'm part of that networking system. We constantly post jobs out there, and we talk amongst ourselves like, hey, this person might be a good fit for this job. This position has become open over here. So we're kind of recruiting from our own when it comes to a listserv like that. That option is out there. Some states have post sites or training sites, and that's where some of the stuff is advertised. We have D&B Hoovers and Ezekiel, which is Harvard's own database, which is kind of cool because it pulls from all the social media websites out there, something unique to our own. So what we want to do is not just put something in the paper, put something on Monster, Indeed, that sort of thing. We want to be able to pull statewide, if that's your desire, region-wide, if that's your desire, or nationwide, if that's your desire. We're going to put that stuff out there. We're going to attract those candidates. So we would expect, I'm sorry, John, go back one right there. We would expect to start with probably over 100 applicants that put in for that position. A lot of times with the job, 30,000 people or so, you know, that's what we're looking at. It's about 100 applicants, maybe a little bit more. I'm sure we're going to get probably 20 to 30 highly qualified individuals, but it is our responsibility to get the top 2% to reach down to get those 3 to 5 finalists. We say 3 to 5. If you guys decide 3 is what you want, 3 is what you get. Go ahead, Jeff. So what we want to do is get in depth with the phone calls. We want to make sure it's a viable candidate, look at their performance, their history, their experience, the culture, the stability, the location where they're at, their mentality, and their vision. Vision is probably one of the most important, okay? You do want to look at their culture and their experience. What is it that they've done? Have they worked for one department for 20 years? That's great. What is their vision for that department? What are their plans? What are their goals? What have they accomplished within that department? What projects have they worked on? So we want to take into account, you know, if somebody's been in 4 different law enforcement jobs, we want to take into account all 4 of those jobs and how they progressed, what projects they've worked on. We're going to talk about scorecards in just a second. When it comes to background investigation, we're going to do a law enforcement database check, intensive phone interview with pertinent professionals. John, there's one more right there. Yeah. Performance evaluations and credential checks. We're going to go out there and talk to their past supervisors. They're folks that were stakeholders with them, they're partners. So if this was a chief of police somewhere else, we're going to reach out to their city government. We're going to reach out to their city administrator.
Kurt, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
This is Scott Harrison. Scott,
Scott.
Jody passed out the forms. We have 1 form for the grade. So what they're going to do is go through their own presentation, but then they'll also be answering those 11 questions that are pertinent, and then we mark it down on the piece of grade. Okay?
So we're going to take a look.
Sorry.
You know, you're fine. So we're going to take a look at some of those things, and then we're going to, you know, run-of-the-mill sort of things we recommend, psychological evaluations, that sort of thing. Go ahead, John. So this is the scorecard, and I'm going to let John talk a little bit about this.
Basically what we do within all of our candidates, we have a scoring card system, and a lot of our processes, or all of our processes, build off of one another. So it's important to us that when we you know, put together a job description and we put together a profile, that we are looking at these candidates, that we score them. And so there's a number of factors here. As you can see, we have an overall rating system that we do. So we can look at this, not, you know, each candidate, break down those requirements and give you an overall view of why they were critiqued in the way they were, and when we presented those to you. We also have interviewing templates that are available that I've been very successful with over the last 15 years that I've used in many places, and that focus similar to that. They also can get into a lot of the behavioral aspects of interviews and in terms of responses, as well as trade synopsis and some of those types of things that you can use with the grading scales that we can build based on your own preferences. And a lot of that can be tied back to some of these things individually to each candidate as well, but still maintaining that integrity of a standardized interview template. You know, we routinely provide, you know, a slate of best-in-class candidates, each search within 30 business days or sooner. And a lot of that, again, goes back to our networks and what we do. You know, and a lot of it goes back to, again, what your needs are and how you want us to work in this. But we are very proud of our networks and resources and how we have built those in the industry so that we are able to obtain that. We usually find that our clients find someone that exceeds their expectations in the first slate of candidates we have. So we've had a lot of success with that. We know that some firms take longer, 3 to 6 months to finish a search. But, you know, again, we are here to serve you, and so we want to be able to be as expeditious as you need us to be, or to also work with you over a longer time frame as needed.
All right, so one of our goals, or probably our main goal, is that we want to be your partner. We want to see the town of Milford succeed. We want to see a police department succeed. We want to see a chief that's going to have longevity, okay? We want someone that's not there, just there, you know, 3 to 5 years. We want to see someone that's in there for the long haul. So, we have relationships with many leading federal, state, local law enforcement agencies, and that's who we network with. We've worked with several Georgia Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Secret Service, different police departments, police chiefs, different police universities, or university systems with police departments in them. And we build these networks up, and that's how we're able to get some of this stuff done. That's how we're able to reach out to these folks and say, hey, you know, this town of 30,000 people with this historical aspect is looking for a chief of police. It's a growing community. They need someone there that is going to understand what community policing is. Okay, they need someone there that's going to understand how the citizens need to have trust in their police department and how they need to have trust in their police chief, and that needs to work vice versa. So we reach out to all these folks out there that have this vast experience and vast knowledge, and that's how we're able to pull some of this stuff in. So we want to understand your culture. We understand that a lot of people can apply for the job, and probably many people can do the job, but we want the right fit for you, okay? Our number one goal is to find that person to help your town succeed. All right, your town is growing. You have a large different background and makeup in your town, so we want to find that right person, that individual that fits what your town is all about. And then we're going to have constant communication. That's every Friday or so, we're going to have a written report sent out. We need to speak on the phone daily. We're going to speak on the phone daily. Okay, if you have questions, reach out to us. We just want to make sure that constant flow of communication is important. One, because we believe strongly in transparency. We are huge in transparency. That is probably one of the biggest characteristics about our firm is that we believe in transparency. Go ahead, John.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we want to be able to do is be able, as he said, is be transparent, give you the reports, keep you involved, get your input on what we're doing, let you know the number of applicants and things that are coming in. What we have found, and I found through my own career, but I think I know our firm has found, Kurt and I have discussed this at length too, is that sometimes we've hired consultants in our own jobs and positions, and we found that, you know, you hire and then they come back later. So, you know, we say, we'll do it in 30 days, put those in front of you. Well, we don't just say, okay, we'll talk to you in 30 days. We keep you involved, we keep you in the loop, we keep those reports going. And the other thing we want to do is we want that ongoing relationship, as Kurt mentioned. And so we want to be an advisor to your chief of police. It doesn't just end with the search with us. We want to continue to work with you if we can. And so we know in that first year especially, and even beyond that, it costs nothing to pick up the phone and give us a call and say, hey, you know, from the chief of police saying, I've got some issues, can you know, you guys know some resources I can go to? Sure. You know, if we can provide the service and that's something we can come in as this firm and you know, engage on, we're happy to do that. However, by the same token, we're there to provide a resource. We want your chief to be successful. I think that's one of the reasons we've had the success rate we do, is because we do have that engagement with them, and we want them to be successful so that when they come in, you know, we open our networks to them so that they have the resources. And we do a lot of other things here. We just put this down as a list for you to see that, you know, everything from grant writing services to human resources to strategic planning. We do a lot of different things, you know, for different, towns and so on. But, you know, this is certainly something we've done for, you know, police departments as well. I want to go a little bit over my background with you. 22 years, and actually about 23 now, in human resources. I have, my education is I have a master's in public administration. I have a criminal justice degree, psychology degree, you know, 2 bachelor's degrees. I have been in human resources in a variety. I've been in higher education for a number of years. I worked with the Missouri State Supreme Court for 5 years. I've been working in the Office of Administration. I've been in the private sector too, but I have a lot of time working with that. I've worked a lot with police departments in terms of consulting and direct engagement with highway patrols and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of my background, and so this is very important to me. And I will say one thing, and let Kurt talk about a little bit about his background, is that because he shares the same thing as me, it's not just about the fact that we've had our own experiences. We actually come from law enforcement families. So we have that understanding as well. I grew up with police, chiefs, and the colonel of the highway patrol in Missouri was my, those type of my uncle. I mean, I can go on and on. Even fire chiefs, and so public service is a really big thing in our family. And we have people who are city officials, so we understand city government because we've grown up with that. And so that's a little bit about me, but Kurt, I'll let you tell a little bit about you.
All right, so I've got about 20 years experience in law enforcement. Currently, I'm a captain for a police department. Our community size is about 30,000, so I can relate right now to where y'all are. And I started off in Michigan, where I was born and raised, working up in an area called Flint, Michigan. If you've ever heard of it, it's water crisis, a whole lot of bad stuff going on out there. I left there down south to Savannah, Georgia area. Beautiful area, very historic. And that's why I was so excited when I got here today and we drove around. There's a lot of history in this town. And this is the first time I've ever been up in this area. It's really great and I love it. But I'll say this. I've had a chance to work with a lot of different individuals over the course of my career, and I've had the chance to sit on hiring boards for chiefs and captains and majors and lieutenants, and it's all about the same thing. It's all about customer service. At the end of the day, the police department provides a business to the community, and it's all about customer service, and they have to have a working partnership, and it has to work both ways. And you want that perfect candidate. I've been working with the city of Savannah so well for the past, 10 years or so that I was approached to run on city council. I'm involved in politics now, yay me. So my election is November 5th, so I'm real excited about that. But I've also got my master's in criminal justice, bachelor's in criminal justice criminology, associate in law enforcement. And one cool thing about me is I'm a behavior analyst with the state of Georgia. So that's why I think that face-to-face contact with an applicant is very interesting and pretty cool, because we can talk on the phone all day long, but unless you sit somebody in front of me and we start asking the tough questions, you're not going to get a feel for that person unless you're up close and personal. So there's something about that.
Now, one of the things, instead of going through all of these, I can tell you that what we do is we're very selective in terms of who we pick for our recruiting teams. The two people you see here are probably the top recruiters in our firm. We have many recruiters. And these two individuals are, for example, Derek has a master's in psychology, has a counseling background. He's in terms of the behavioral aspect and being able to really get in there and develop profiles on individuals and making those matches. He's excellent. One of the best I've actually seen. Kelly is also one of the best in terms of, really getting in there and really identifying individuals. We talked a little bit about our database. Our database that we have is tailored with, Kurt mentioned social media. We build a profile. So when we pull up, there are some things we develop so we can immediately pull and put into a database and start building a profile on things for individuals that have applied, so we can look up, the accomplishments they had, their goal, different things that they've done in their career and so on, and also look to see if there's any problems, any challenges. And so we work very hard to develop that so that we could vet those types of things for you. Because again, it's all about, that retention. We want you to get the best person in here that's going to fit with your community and that's going to stay here for a long time.
All right, so our commitment, we're not really interested in a search project for professional reasons. We feel it's a valid commitment to your search and strong law enforcement leadership with personal experience, education, and relationships. And John and I have worked together for years, and I can tell you that we both believe wholeheartedly in community spirit, community involvement, and partnerships with the community. And I think that's what makes, what we do so successful, because in the growing, social arena things, law enforcement has changed over the past 20, 30 years, even when I started. Even when my grandfather was in it, it changed. But now we have this opportunity to bring somebody in that you tailor. You got 6 public schools in the city of Milford. You've got a major highway nearby. You've got a growing community. You want somebody in here that's going to be able to understand the needs of your community, that's going to be able to understand what community policing is, and build those ever-important partnerships, and somebody that's going to stick around. That is our commitment to you. We want to be able to be that firm to reach out, get that individual for you. So here's a list of some of the folks. This is just a partial list. We're just going to throw some of the stuff out there. I mean, it's in the slides if you guys want to look at it. I'm not going to go through all of them. We've got some state, federal, local agencies, Michigan, Georgia, Missouri, different colleges, feds, state boards. Go ahead, John.
And so, that basically, we have a lot of different partnerships out there where we work directly with them in searches. We work with them on major projects. So we understand. And so as a result, we have developed some very strong networks and relationships with individuals. We can pull from a variety of different areas. You know, we were talking about, for example, having hired some excellent police chiefs who came to towns like Milford that were from the federal, you know, from federal law enforcement, that maybe U.S. Marshals, FBI, Secret Service, and come in. And people say, well, wait a minute. Well, many of those individuals that came in started out in local law enforcement, and then they went over, which happens a lot. And so there's a desire for them, you know, once they've got made their career federal, to get back into things. So sometimes, you know, so I'm not saying that's what we're going to do. I'm just saying, you know, what I would say is that we really get in there and focus, and we look at, you know, broadly to make sure that we are really looking at what your needs are, looking at that profile, and looking at outside the box instead of just looking at, as Kurt and I like to talk about it often, is looking on paper and says, oh, that's what's wonderful on paper, but in reality, you know, there may be some problems, and we unfortunately have both, you know, seen this happen in other searches that we've seen out there where that person may come in and look good on paper, but they didn't do deep enough background check, or they didn't really look into the background enough.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's important too, once we look at getting that proper person into place, getting the right person and the right fit into that place, keeping them there. It's not all about, you know, getting the person and getting them in there, but it's also about retention. How do we keep that person there? All right, and that's one of the things that we're designed to do. Our firm is designed to do, and that's one of John and I's commitment, is we like to work with that. The organization, the town, the municipal agency, we like to work with them long after we're done doing what it is that we were asked to do. So we really appreciate y'all's time. Thank you so much for the hospitality today. We've had the chance to drive around Milford. It is a beautiful community. Reminds me of home up North Michigan. I love it. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, we're going to go, I know Gina had asked us to put, if you look at the back of your package here, you've got the 11 questions. A lot of what we covered in the presentation is there, but I would like to, you know, take you through just a little bit.
Thank you, John. That's important. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Some of these, through the 11 questions, and Kurt and I can answer some of these for you as we're going through, but you know, so what level of experience with law enforcement executive searches of similar nature have you had in the past 10 years? You know, we talked about our more than 20 years of experience. We have had experience with local governments. We've had experience with, you know, we both worked in university settings with police departments. It's interesting about universities. I just might just add this in this I found was really interesting, because having worked with state law enforcement, federal law enforcement, local municipalities, and working in universities, a lot of people don't realize that universities are small cities. They have their own police departments. I've been to places like Lafayette, but they have their own fire departments, their own EMS, they have their own hospitals, they have their own banking systems, they have, you know, credit unions, they have their own housing, they have restaurants now. I mean, I don't know about some of you here, but when I went to college, we didn't have a Starbucks every 50 feet, but they do now. So there's a lot of different things like that out there that we didn't have. So, you know, there's a lot of different places like that where you have people that are in those chief positions that are excellent law enforcement officers that have come from other places, and that's another source, as well as, you know, we were talking about earlier, the federal law enforcement. So we've partnered with a lot of, you know,
John,
people.
excuse me for a moment.
Sure.
We're pressed for time, so if you respond to just the questions you haven't gone over.
Okay.
Also, we want an opportunity to ask our questions.
Sure.
And if you look at the clock behind me.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So, we told you that, okay, so the things that I think that we have covered here with you, I think most of them we did cover in our presentation for you. However, we talked a little bit about the candidate. I would like to talk a little bit on number 6, the candidate evaluation exercises we utilize. We talked a little bit about the scorecard, and I showed you that there. Again, this is, as Kurt mentioned, this isn't just about the, you know, the analytical side and talking about the actual, you know, and the actual scorecard. We also, you know, have those face-to-face conversations as well as the telephone conversations. Our recruiters are the first contact often when we identify candidates, and then as managing directors, they push to us, and we have conversations. may have one or two of those conversations before we even get to, the next level. So that's really important to us to really articulate. We want to articulate to you that we have a very well-developed process in terms of how we screen our candidates and get those individuals to you. Kurt, you want to talk a little bit more about the background investigation?
Yeah, I think we covered everything else, but I will real quick hit on one last topic here that you guys can answer your questions, or ask your questions, and we'll answer for you. The background stuff that we do, some of it's only specific to private investigators, law enforcement, and investigative techniques that would be used are like TLO, AccuRent, local database systems. We use former employers, former subordinates, neighbors, prior stakeholders, performance evals that will pull from the files. Third-party service to undertake credential checks if necessary. They'll also undergo a polygraph examination and a psychological examination in order to determine the capabilities of that position for that person. And I think we covered pretty much everything else in there. Yeah. You guys take a look at it. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Other questions? Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question, gentlemen. You mentioned it 3 or 4 times, obviously you were trying to stress it, that you try to fit someone that fits within our culture.
Right.
You've never done a police search in Massachusetts. How do you know what our culture is? Do you come in here, do you interview people around town?
Yeah.
What exactly is because you stressed it, because you said 3 or 4 times.
Well,
so I need to know what do you do to make sure that you know what our culture is?
First thing we do is a basic research of your town. Okay, we're going to do the basic internet search. We're going to come in and talk to city council members, city officials. We're going to come in and talk to some folks in the community, business owners. Okay, business owners are plus. They're the key stakeholders of the community. I think your teachers, educational institutions around the area, those are important people as well. We're going to do a screen of some individuals throughout the community. It's not, there's no rhyme or reason behind it. It's very random, so that there's just no bias one way or another.
And we're going to, and we, just so you know too, because a lot of people may not know who's best to talk to, we rely on you to help us with that as well. As to advise us on, say, you may want to have a conversation with there's people that we would normally talk to, that there may be some other individuals that you may say, I think it's important that you talk to these individuals. And that's a natural process of recruitment for any type of position out there. Is at least that's what I've done, Kurt has done, what I've done in just even regular HR practices to make sure we understand what the needs are. We sit down with you all because we really want to understand, from your perspective, what are the current challenges you see? What are the current expectations you have out of this leader? And so on. So that all plays into that for us. And so it's about, like I said before, we want to build that profile, so that we know when we're out there looking for that we can vet, and it helps us to vet much quicker.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we'll do, the characteristics or factors that come into play that we talked about earlier, partnership and communication. That's the thing. When we come in, we want to build a partnership with y'all, and we want to have that constant communication. Transparency is important. We need to be able to understand what your community is all about. I can go out there and drive around like I did earlier all day long, but I'm not going to know a darn thing unless I get a cost vote. Okay, so that's where we rely on you guys. And we have before gone out and done canvassing of areas to talk to folks and talk to city officials and school teachers and members of the community business owners. We get a good feel of it. But sometimes nobody knows better than the folks that are intimately involved in the process.
Right. Thank you very much.
Anything else, man? Denaro?
Some questions, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
John, is this a blind search and a blind evaluation process?
And in terms of
Person's name. Does everybody know the person's name when they're looking at the resume and doing the evaluations?
the recruiters do when they're doing the evaluation.
When it's necessary, I can understand that, obviously.
Right.
But as you pass around the material that you've accumulated and asking your staff to evaluate that person, is it done by name or is it a blind search? And I'm not favorable to each one, but I'd like to know.
It's not a blind search. When we have the applicants come in, we're doing like any other HR search you would do. We get the applicants in, we review those applicants, the recruiter, they may pass it to the next recruiter.
I'm concerned with the evaluation process primarily.
Right.
Does that evaluator know who he's evaluating when he's looking at the paper?
I mean, as far as, when they get it in, they don't know who they're looking at until they get the application in front of them, and then they evaluate that process. But that's a normal process, yeah.
Obviously, an ad is going out. We'd like to see that ad before it's released and approve it, and assure all aspects of whatever we want in the ad is there. The same thing with the evaluation process. We're required by a bylaw within the town to evaluate certain things, and we've developed a job description specific to the town of Milford Police Chief. We, again, need to see all those things in the evaluation process. You talked about the parameters of the search. Evidently, it's not routine to go nationwide. It's up to us.
It depends on the practice of each agency or the city, okay? So you have the option. If you want to go
We have
nationwide.
a requirement that it must be.
Yeah, if you have a requirement that's nationwide, that's great.
In your general experience, what does salary play in applicants applying for this job?
I think it depends on, a lot of it plays in terms of cost of living in the area. Aside from that, a lot of it is going to be beyond that. You know, and a lot of studies out there support this, you know, job satisfaction. It's going to be more about the opportunity to come in and make an impact. So it's not, the only thing I really see that salary impacts a lot of times is in terms of the cost of living. If, you know, is the salary meeting that cost of living for them? If they're going to make the move, is it something that they, you know, that they're going to come and that's going to be, you know, within their, you know, they want a little bit of an advancement, but they also, you know, are mainly coming for the opportunity.
I think we'd like your recommendations on the salary issue when we get down to that process.
Sure.
We're going to ask you at the end to supply us with your standard contract so that we have an idea of what you, in writing of what you are offering for the price that you've submitted on your bid. But I also would like to see in that any potential markups that you see in looking over the job description and the bylaw. How do you verify the resume content? Do you verify the resume content?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
A lot of it, you know, some of it's done by calling prior employers or calling.
So you mentioned that you're going to do those by interview, telephone?
Any means necessary, if it's email, interview, telephone, or face-to-face, yes, sir.
Gentlemen, your presentation was very professional. I want to thank you for that and impressive.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
One more question.
Chris?
I know it's very important to everybody on this committee that we're involved, and you repeatedly said we did that. How do you guys do it? Do we Skype meeting with you? Do you email us? Do we conference call?
I'll take that. What we typically do and how we keep you involved, we do a weekly Friday report first. I always want to put that out there. And I'm a data guy, so you're going to get some stats on that. But don't worry, I won't. It's not higher math, I promise. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at the number of applications and things like that that come in. We can Skype with you if we need to do that. But the other thing we've done is that we come here too. You know, we will have a certain number of. I'm a face-to-face kind of guy. That's just me. And I pick up the phone.
Both of us are like
both of us are like
that. We like that face-to-face contact.
Right. So we want to make sure that you're engaged, actively engaged with you. So, like we said, we want to be here to hear about the problems that you used to see, to know, you know, have you tell us, you know, if we're, for example, we've got some candidates and say, okay, we've got a candidate here that maybe we want to put in front of you, but we want to ask you some few questions or a couple because of something we're seeing in the background. We may be talking at a high level because we're still vetting, but we may want to get your advisement on that and say, well, here's an issue for us. You know, we had a, you know, situation A or B happen to us, and we're very, very concerned about, you know, somebody coming in with this type of blemish on the record or you know, whatever it might be. We wanted to talk about that through those things with things that may not be a big issue, something might be a big issue. For example, it could be And when I say something like that, I want to give you an example. You know, a lot of times we run into situations where that, you know, you get something background check and you find out that 15 years ago they had a DUI. And they were younger, it was something that happened at a party, you know, things that happen, you know, what is that to you in terms of hiring someone like that into your...
I'm more worried about, because I just don't want to read emails, because emails are not
No.
too good. That was really more of my, how is
Communication-
it, we talk, we conference call?
Yeah, communication, partnership, and transparency only works two ways.
Right.
So we gotta have that either voice to voice or face-to-face conversation.
Perfect.
So you're going to get some data, but it's going to be just
Yeah.
That's fine, I just want to make sure that when you bring something up, I can
No,
email and answer the
You
question.
can call, let me just say this, that you can call us anytime. I mean, literally, that is one of the things that Harvard, we tell you, we're 24/7. So, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to promise what I might at 3 in the morning when I pick up the phone, but I will talk. But the thing is, but seriously, we are available because we understand that, especially if you probably got some law enforcement folks on the committee here as well. Everybody's working different shifts, there's different times. You get off work, or, you know, it may be early in the morning for you. We understand that. We will be available to you when you call. And in fact, my office phone is always forwarded to my cell phone. So I have done that for 25 years. So, and it's just something that customer service you will find with a curtain on. That is the first and foremost thing with us. That's what's made us successful. We may have a lot of skills and things, and that's great in our toolbox, but it's customer service is really us.
Jody, Scott, and then Ed. Jody?
So, gentlemen, I was wondering, how do you try to ensure diversity in the candidate pool that you present?
Oh, thank you for asking that. We actually, over 40% of our candidates, we hire are diverse. I can send you all, if you like, some statistics we had. We didn't, that wasn't in your, the original thing, it's in our proposal. So you'll see that. But we actually, through our different networks that we engage with, we have very diverse pools of candidates that come through. And a lot of that, in terms of the engagement, is a lot of that is, and it comes back to how we also write the job post. You know, I really appreciate some of your comments and your questions because, you know, that the way you write a job description, the way you put together a job posting says a lot about your community. Because these types of jobs, you start off and like you can do the same thing with universities, cities, so on. You start off and say the town of Milford is a community of 30,000 people located in the outside bottom of a beautiful bedroom community, Norman Rockwell setting, whatever, you know, which that's kind of what I put it as. It's a beautiful town, but you know, and all these types of things, you know, that you can put into that type of thing. But with the, so you can get a very diverse group of people. Just one little example, because why? You're not far from Boston. So that draws in a lot of people who are coming from larger cities. So when we talk about diversity too, we're not just talking obviously about, you know, ethnicity is important. We're talking about gender. There's some really fantastic female police chiefs out there now. There's a lot of people coming in with different experiences and different other cultural backgrounds and things that they can bring into here that can really make an impact change.
And I can tell you this right now, my direct boss, my chief, is a female. And her and I actually sat down over the past 2 years and worked on a diversity and inclusion plan for the police department. And we sent that out to, and you'll see on this, there's something called the DRU list, which is in your sheet there. It's one of the listservs we have. That's one of those places we would send that job posting out to, and that is your diversity and inclusion right there. There's a lot of folks out there that have reached out to the universities and through some of the bigger cities and metropolitan areas you're going to get that from. Absolutely.
Scott?
Thank you, gentlemen. So, one of the questions I had was, as the case with any type of a search, how do you manage local candidates?
How do we manage all the candidates?
No, local candidates. So if you had somebody that, for instance, Milford is a very close-knit community.
Right.
You have somebody that is part of the community that applies for the position. How do you manage that versus, you know?
We talked about this yesterday.
Yes,
We
we
were
did.
bouncing back and forth. We
Sure
said,
did.
and that was the first thing we said. What happens if somebody from local
Sometimes.
or somebody from the police department? Well, I will tell you this much. If they are part of that top 2%, they have as fair chances as anybody else out there. So if they match up, good for them.
And we're looking for that top, you know, that top 2%. And A lot of times you have very strong, we talked about in our presentation succession planning, for example. We're really big believers in that. We believe that, we believe that our experience has been most clients believe in that as well. And so it's no different in police departments, that it's not just about even, somebody moving up to the chief of police, but it's that new chief of police going to come in and have that same vision as well, so that the lieutenants can become captains, can become majors, and can become deputy chief of chief. It's career, it's succession planning, that career ladder. And we know that's important because in any given industry, but especially in law enforcement, what happens if you are a sergeant? There's no way you're going to be a lieutenant until this guy dies 15 years from now or retires or whatever. It's just not going to happen. So what do? They go to the places they can be. So it's about saying, what do we, someone with that vision that says, how do we grow? Do we make more detective positions? Do we do other task force that we create? And Kurt, has been intimately involved in these types of things to help, and has actually taken, I'm very proud of Kurt for this, taken a police department that had an 87% turnover rate and cut it down to, I don't think you're even at 10% right now.
We're less than 10%.
So, and no, you can't have them as chief.
But I will tell you this, we have recommended that before, and we've had outside candidates come in that fit for that position, and we have recommended before for internal candidates to fill that position as well.
Edwin?
Is Donato Nero referenced before, we're guided or steered by a bylaw which was passed at the town meeting. And in Milford, we have an elected town meeting where people run for town meeting member. That's our governing body along with the Board of Selectmen. See new things in New England. Goes back to colonial times, I guess you'd say. And so there's certain strictures in there and guidance that would steer and direct our committee, would also direct your committee. So if you are the group that's chosen, I suggest you look at that and study it, because it's going to give you some guidance as to what we're bound by as well, to be true to the ordinance of the bylaw.
Oh, absolutely. We don't make decisions without running the past.
Yeah.
And that's our point of reference, actually.
Yes.
And John, any information you need, we'll certainly give all that information to you.
Right, and we have been experienced, I worked in, for example, in Louisiana, and we work with the Chicago code a lot, and their legal system is very different. I've worked in, and I'm really interested in your system of government too. So the city council system of government, the boards that you have. I come from and Kurt as well. We come from, I've probably written over literally over 1,000 policies in my life, and had to work with a lot of state statutes when I was with the Supreme Court for a number of years. So reading these types of regs and getting up to speed is nothing for us to get up to speed, and we appreciate having that guidance because it does work like this. We know now we have to do a national search, where we have to come in and kind of ask, what do you want? Because some places are different than others.
I'm actually going over the entire city of Savannah charter right now. It's running for alderman. Dr. Heller, I think, had a question. He's been over here for a
Okay,
while.
Dr. Heller?
Yeah.
Then Chris, and then back
Just
to
a
Donato.
question,
Right.
clarification. Under 7, you said you undergo polygraph examination as well as psychological exam. At what stage do you do this? One of the requirements that we have on our job description is that the candidates have to have a medical and psychological exam on that. Is that psychological exam, at what point do you do that? Is it when you get ready to give us the 2%? And is that included in your fee schedule? Or is that additional that we have to deal with?
That psychological exam is the very last stage. That's your top 3. Okay. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, with the fee schedule, we say there that we would, anything that goes into that, we just bill back to you, but we have, obviously, we have some really great resources to do that. We are very, being public service, having that public service side, we're laughing about this, we're very conscious of budgets. So we always go for things that we could do to help save you on cost, because we know, that's a consideration. So we're very attentive to those things.
And that's what we look at. We look at financial savings. I just had to reduce my budget this last year, $500,000, which is a lot of money, right, for anybody. I don't care what size department you are. But, so I understand. So yes, we are, and that's something we look at, you know, the little bit of fees that add up here and there. So we look at, before we throw anything at you, this is what we're going to say. This is what we got right here. This is how we're going to approach it. You tell us if this works for you.
Very good, thank you.
Chris?
Transparency.
And then Donato. Chris?
Thank you. I see that you do have the requirements where you evaluate the candidate, you have a scorecard and things like that. Once you get it down to like a certain level, number of candidates, do you do anything like an assessment center? Will you put them through like scenarios or anything like that?
Yeah,
that you
we
could
talked about
evaluate?
that. We talked about it yesterday. There are some cases where some city council, city structures have their own process that they send them through. We certainly would be, you can put something up for them like that. We can do an assessment center, basically a scenario type thing or a problem solving or a, I'm trying to remember what we used to call it, an in-basket sort of thing.
Yes.
An in-basket with the emergency management drill attached to it. We've done it before, and I just ended up doing one of those 2 weeks ago.
And what we do in these situations, obviously, we come up with it, and we make it as objective as possible, but we also, goes back to the advisement from UIC, you know, the police, you know, we come and we may say, you know, the board is okay with this, to say, can we, you know, say this are the types of things we're looking for, and then maybe, you know, in that discussion, you might provide something from the department's perspective, saying, these are the types of things that I know that are challenging the board, you know, the committee's on agreement and so on, and we can put that in there. But we would put it together so it's objective and not seen as though there's any undue influence, but we want to get that input from you. Again, that's those conversations so that we understand, you know, what those issues are. So thank you for asking that, because we believe the assessment phase is,
Yeah, and we do it objectively too. So I'll give you, for instance, say you have somebody internal from Milford Police Department that has applied for the job, and they are one of the top candidates. And we have somebody else from, we'll say, New Hampshire, and somebody else from Virginia. Okay, you got 3 candidates right there. We're going to give them an assessment, and we're going to give them an emergency management scenario. It's not going to resemble anything in Milford. It's not going to resemble anything in New Hampshire, Virginia. It is a generic Yorktown, USA, 123 ABC Street, that sort of thing. We'll put some stuff in there so that way there's no bias. We want to make sure it's transparent, as fair as possible. Everybody's got a fair shake at it.
Thank you. Donato?
John, some confusion to me about this weekly report system. I personally would like to see written weekly reports so that everything goes on between us is in writing.
Right.
Your accomplishments and our responses to you. The other one is the diversity issue, and that is, I do not want you to respond to what I'm going to say. And that is, if someone meets the standard for the top group, no matter what they are, I would like to see their names before us. I don't want to see anyone brought from the bottom and put in that top list for any other reason than the quality of their performance, the merits that they've achieved. I do not want you to respond, because I don't want to hear what just went on previously between the two of you. Thank you.
Michael?
Gentlemen, thank you. With regards to Mr. Fritz's previous question with regards to assessment centers, I know everything's been spoken of in generalities so far. For the sake of our edification, let's assume we have 100 candidates that apply. First round of screening will usually cut that list in half based on the criteria. Am I correct?
About half to maybe a third.
Yeah. The point of my question comes down to, at what point do you decide to do an assessment center? At what point do you decide to do face-to-face interviews? You're obviously not going to do interviews with 100 candidates in 30 days.
Nope. Usually it's the third round to the top 2%. So when we get down to 5 candidates, and we've whittled it down to at least 5 candidates, that's when we start getting in-depth assessment centers, face-to-face, that sort of thing. Well, what I don't want to do is, you know, start pulling in 20 different people, and I think what that does is that It takes up a lot of time, and this is a pressing matter, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So what I'd like to do is screen through the best we can, first round, second round. By the time you get to the third round, you're looking at your top 5 candidates, and that's when we start getting into the assessment centers and the face-to-face interviews.
Okay, just as a follow-up, excuse me. With regards to the selection committee bylaw, chief bylaw that has been referred to several times, I'm surprised you actually don't have a copy of that. But it's this committee's job to present 3 to 5 candidates to the Board of Selectmen. So I would assume that you would probably have more than 5 candidates that you would be closely considering, so that you can build that close to 3 to 5?
Yeah.
Or 5, I think it's
3 to 5.
6 to us.
If we,
3 to 5, 5.
Yeah. Right, and, it could be 8 to 10, on that. What we're trying to do, that 3 to 5 is really that is the standard number. And so we usually, talk about that in almost everywhere we present, because that is about the standard number. And so, but if we, when we talk about the top 2%, it doesn't mean that, there aren't some other excellent candidates that are in that pool. We're giving you the top 2%. When we go below that, and if we go below, beyond the 5 that you want to look at those, there are going to be some issues. They kept them out, and we would share with you what those things are. And they would be based on the criteria that you helped us to develop. So it wouldn't be something that we made a rash judgment call or something like that, or flip to quarter, We're going to come, we're going to say, these are the things that are important. This individual, for example, had, you were very into community policing. Okay, great. Well, these individuals are all big into community policing. These 3 mentioned it, but they really didn't have any successes. These 5 all have had major successes in complete community policing programs. That's the kind of thing we're trying, and that may have been the thing that took them over the edge, because that could be something you say that is a major thing for us. So.
Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to Mr. Getty's point, we are the search committee. We are not the appointing authority. The appointing authority is our Board of Selectmen, which is consistent of 3 members that are all independently elected. We are charged in our charter with supplying them with 3 to 5, we'll call them finalists, if you will, candidates for them to choose, for them to then make an appointment. We obviously would want to meet just those 3 to 5 to then be able to roll that down. The other question I had was, so as I'm starting to do some math and trying to figure out the timelines that are associated with this, so just kind of walk me through, and I forgive me if you were going through this. So we go down the path, your firm is selected. What is the timeline? Just kind of walk me through what that timeline looks like between now and us getting our candidates to doing our interview, doing background searches, and ultimately fulfilling our charter, which is supplying 3 to 5 candidates through the Board of Selectmen for their.
One of the things that as you remember, we mentioned getting candidates in front of you that slate within 30 days. A lot of that is, and I'm not trying to put this back. A lot of that is going to be based on what your timeline is. We have a process where we're going to, work with you on the job description, the job posting. We're going to put that out there. We're going to run a search. Let's say that you say we want to run it for 30 days. We want to run it for 30 days, which is very common too. We put it out there, and then then we get the applicants back. We start the process. We go through that. Then we want to, obviously we're giving you weekly reports and so on. So we may get into 45, 60 days before we're at a point where you want to meet again and do that and have a discussion. And then once we do that, Mr. Getty said, we may be in a situation where we may have some others. We say, well, we want 3 to 5, but we've got 8 really good ones, and we want to put those in front of you as well. And and so that may be important, is going to be important to us as well. So in taking it through that timeline, and then from that point, once we've got those folks in front of you, we're happy to be here for when they're, present, when they're coming in, and coordinate that whole process for you. A lot of times the best thing, and I don't know how that would work here or not, You know, we do a lot of airport interviews. We get a room, you know, they bring them in, they may not want to do that, you may want to have it just here, and that is fine too. But we're happy to help coordinate that process where the candidates come in.
John, we have to get moving.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where we,
Yeah. David, you haven't asked anything yet? Any questions?
No, actually, all my questions have been kind of answered.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, just,
Anything else, Dan?
Michael, one last, no, okay, Donato, and that's the last question. Donato.
Guys, but just for my personal understanding, what's the cost involved with you guys getting here, meeting with us, and getting home?
We can't talk,
Ballpark figure.
we can't talk about that, because that goes in the overall thing, all right?
No, I don't understand that, so I understand what it would cost us to invite them to come here.
Well, it would, well, go ahead.
well, I mean, in terms of, for us to come here.
Right.
And
Like this meeting right here.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about, you know, we put into our proposal, you know, a fee that we anticipate being the costs, and,
Don't mention
It's
anything.
built into the proposal?
right.
Okay, thank you.
So, we want to thank you, great presentation, and the process, and I'll tell the same thing to every firm. Tonight, we grade all 3 proposals, and then tomorrow morning, they'll be tabulated, put on a spreadsheet, and then at 2 o'clock, both town councils and our HR professional will go over everything, and then the number 1, whoever's number 1, the envelope will be open. Okay, so your envelope, your proposal will be open, and if it's under 50,000, fine. If it's not over 50, if it's over 50,000, we'll do negotiations. But we'll have town council and the procurement chief, who's also an attorney, be involved in the whole process. We want to do it right. In Massachusetts, there are many regulations, bidding laws, procurement laws, and that's the way we'll follow. Okay? So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Would you mind if I leave these with you so that you can have extra copies?
Sure, okay, thank you.
I'll take them.
All right. So
Say down
when
south,
these
you'll come
gentlemen
back and
leave,
see us now.
we'll,
Thank you. Take care.
I enjoy it here. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
thank you, John. Yeah, nice presentation. Okay, let's, we have the scoring sheets in front of us. Let's do the best we can and put down the ratings, add it up, and then we'll go on to the next appointment. And then at the end, when all 3 are done, we could go back. In other words, if we think number 1 has changed and the answers are better, we can do that, all right? So let's take a few minutes on that, and then we'll call the second applicant in. Yeah, total.
Told to meet him that.
No, Matt,
I
yeah.
was told to meet him that.
John, you going back tonight or tomorrow morning? Oh, good, all right. All right. Have a good time. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's close to it now. We have a lot of police patrolling at night.
So we are going to add the score.
Yes, yes. Yep. I gave us some nice pencils so we can go back and if you think things should be changed, you can do that as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask for a
The
rating.
other half is good, it'll be a tough decision.
This is the general
This is the other side.
advantages to the people on this one. It doesn't really matter whether I said it or.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, right, yep.
Who's coming in next, do you know?
Public sector search. Okay, yeah. And the gentleman's name, Donato, everybody's Gary Peterson. Gary Peterson. Okay, is everyone all done with the scoring? Okay, just put them aside. And Maureen? Yeah, Gary, please. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Double check. There's just someone going.
Seems to be going by a little too quick.
Okay, thanks,
No,
Maureen.
no, it's Labor Day already, and it's like,
Andy, they'll be right here, okay? I want to thank Andy DiOrio for coming, the IT director. He was down here this afternoon for a couple hours, and then was here at 6 o'clock to help us out. So, Andy, thank you very much.
No problem, no problem. It's all fun,
Yeah, I'm fine.
it's all fun. You get to learn something.
When it works, right?
Yes.
And help yourself to refreshments, if coffee, water, whatever you want.
How you doing? Good. All right.
Gary, you can set up, okay? Get ready. Yeah. Don't hurt that hand, okay?
Try not to. Little tendon graft.
Maybe your last presentation didn't go well.
What's that?
Thought maybe your last presentation didn't go well.
If you need help with the machine, yeah, as soon as everybody comes back, okay? Yeah. You got one for everybody?
Pass them around. On off the, there it is.
Oh. You got a camera? Yeah. Just pass it.
Other positions.
There. It's that. Everybody's happy. Okay. All right, Gary. welcome to Milford, and we've talked a couple of times on the phone. We'll have a 20-minute, 25-minute presentation, and we'll have questions from the committee.
Great.
And make sure you answer those 11 questions that you were given. And I just want to introduce the members of the committee, okay? Dr. Heller, David Brutch, Donato Nero, I can't see who's next. Who's Jimmy? Who's that?
That's Jim Herron.
Okay, no, Jody Massilia, Scott Harrison, Mike Paghetti, Chris Moran, Ed Bertarelli, Chris Fitz, myself, Dino. All right?
Great.
So welcome to Milford, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much. First, I don't know if the chair has explained, I'm in a cast because I had surgery last Friday in California, and so I want to make the trip out here to visit with you all, and tell you about our services, and answer any questions you have about our proposal. So I'm going to get right into it since time is of the essence.
Yeah, no, go ahead, take it.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is who we are, that's who our firm is, why we do this type of work. We're going to discuss our recent track record, what you can expect from us in terms of process, because this is not my process, this is your process. You are the search committee. I'm here to be a facilitator for you. And since I'm the only one that's going to be getting paid, I'll do the majority of the work, but I'm going to need you guys and your input. And I'm going to give you our spiel on why it should be us. I'm going to address the concerns and questions you guys had that the chair sent me, and then I'll take other questions from you. All right?
Yes.
Okay, who we are. Public Sector Search and Consulting. We're a California corporation out of Rockland, California. That's in the Sacramento area. I'm the president, CEO of the company. I'm a retired police chief out of California. City of Martinez in the San Francisco Bay Area. A city of about 36,000 people, about 55 employees. So I have experience firsthand running a department around the size of Milford. My colleague will be helping me on the search, Mark Helms, is also a retired police chief. We both have around 30 years experience. Mark was a deputy chief in Stockton, California, and then became the chief of Lodi, California, which is known for its wine. You guys have heard of Lodi. And then we have support staff, we have an attorney, a graphic designer. I passed out a couple brochures on each side of the room. If those can circulate, it gives you an idea of the kind of work we do as far as brochures go. And we don't do paper brochures anymore. Not really anyone that's contemporary does that. So that's what you'll see on our website. And when we advertise to candidates, they'll get a link to the brochure, and those are sample brochures. So, and then we have some office help. Okay, so why do we do this work? Okay. I went to work for a recruiting company after I retired as police chief. And I did a bunch of different types of searches. Police chiefs, fire chiefs, city managers, public works directors, and there became a common thread in all the police chief searches. And it's the community wants to be involved. The community wants to have a voice. Labor wants to have a voice. And I saw that as a disconnect between recruiting firms and actually doing police chief searches. So I wanted to be inclusive and wanted to help the new chief in whichever city or town it is have legitimacy when they come in. And they get that legitimacy by community involvement and community participation and selection. So, and we help cities and towns get it right. So that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. We believe that who runs the police department in any city and town in America, it's an important job and it really matters. Okay, our track record. So those are the searches that we've done in the past couple of years. And I think they speak for themselves. I mean, large cities, medium-sized cities, small cities, all of them have their own unique challenges. Some were city manager appointee, mayoral appointee, or search committee. All of the asterisks by each one of the cities, each one of the projects, denotes that there was a search committee. So we're very experienced working in this forum with search committees. and we get to understand and recognize that there are different interests and different objectives, but at the end of the day, we want to come together as a committee and present the best possible candidates to the Highway Authority. And I don't think anyone else that you'll see today or in the country has as many searches for mid-sized cities and these type of searches that we've done in the past few years. We've done work. We specialize in police chief searches, so we're not going to come back and try and get the finance director search or the city manager search. We don't do those at all for anybody. And so our track record is really important to us. Every one of the searches you saw there, the chief is still in place. We presented between 30 and 60 candidates in each search, and there's reasons why some searches get 30 candidates and some searches get 60 candidates. On the 60 side, sometimes unbeknownst to us, the HR professionals within the city advertise on sites that generate a lot of what I call nuisance applications, folks that really aren't qualified. And then on the other side, when you only get 30 applications or less, it's because there's been some type of controversy in the city around the search process or the search itself. So that's your expectations should be somewhere between those two numbers. So in terms of process, okay, this is a lot to digest here. So what we do is when it's decided that we're going to be your firm, we're going to come out and do an initial meeting with the search committee. And we're going to want to focus on your culture, the department itself, the position requirements. Because sometimes the requirements can be changed. And you guys may have a certain requirement. For example, I've been to searches where they required a master's degree. And I'm like, you're going to have this many candidates. So let's make it a bachelor's degree, cast a wider net, and then we'll get more candidates in, and then we'll distill it down from there. So we really need to get to know and understand your organization and the department, and not just the police department, but the city and the town, and how it functions, and how all the moving pieces fit together. And then we're going to have to decide as a committee whether or not we're going to do community engagement related to this search. It's one of the things we offer is community engagement and input sessions to the community, and it's usually a decision that would be a decision of the search committee. For a city this size, for a town this size, I would recommend if we're going to do that, we'd have 2 or 3 meetings on different evenings to get folks to come in, and we're going to want to ask them what they're looking for in the next chief. You know, what are the traits and characteristics that they want to see? What should be the priorities of the department, and what they really want the new chief to do. Right? And I know that there's been some controversy around this position itself in the past, and I know that process of engaging the community goes a long way to helping heal those wounds and help everyone move forward to a place where you can hire a chief, and then whoever that chief is will have legitimacy when they come in and start the job with a clean slate, and people give that person the benefit of the doubt versus another way. So that's the idea of the first meeting, is to define those roles and relationships and what we're actually going to do, right? And so the community engagement piece, and then there's also, we offer surveys, both to the community and the department. Those are options, and those are in the cost package. Those are optional, and something I think you guys should consider, and something we can talk about later on, if you'd like. But I do think it's important that we engage the community, and this committee in and of itself may be enough community representation, and I think you guys would know better than I would on that. Okay? Okay, so from the community engagement meetings from the input we get from you, from other stakeholders, from city representatives, from police department employees, we develop what's called the position profile, right? That's the requirements of the job and what we need the person to do, right? And so we take that position profile and we put it in a brochure, a color brochure that we advertise online with. And there's a couple of them going around on each side. Everyone can get pass those along and see those as an example of the work that we do. They get posted on our website and as well as sent to every candidate that we recruit. And so we develop a recruiting strategy, which is one of your questions, and I'll talk about that afterwards. I'm going to go briefly through this description of the process. But we place ads in places likely to find candidates we're looking for. We recruit a diverse pool of candidates. Then we go ahead and we screen the candidates, me, myself, and my colleague, Chief Helms. So we screen the candidates, and we're screening against that position profile. So what you guys and the community and whoever else provided input decided that we're looking for in the chief, that's what we're going to be looking for. We're going to be screening against that. And then that's how we're going to do some assessments and figure out who we want to present to you and make some decisions on who you're going to interview. And then at some point, either online, the web, like a teleconference, or in person, I think for what I've seen so far, we probably should do this in person. We'll come back here and present the candidates to you. And that means each individual committee member will get a binder with every resume, every cover letter, all the internet research on the candidates. And you'll have all of that. And then we'll go through each candidate that we recommend and tell you why we recommend them. And then you're going to have to do your research as well and read the binders and figure out, well, who else do we want to know about? I want to know about this person. Why wasn't this person in your top group? Because we divided it into 3 groups: recommended, qualified, and then other. And so you may say, Chris, you may say, hey, what about this Captain Jones from this neighboring city? And I better have an answer for that, right? And I'm going to tell you why I didn't recommend Captain Jones. And we may disagree, and the rest of the group may say, you know what, we want Captain Jones in. Well, guess what? Captain Jones is in, because this is a collaborative effort, right? And then we'll narrow it down until we have a reasonable amount of people we can bring in to interview. And that number usually hovers between 5 and 8 in my experience. And so then we'll bring them in, and after we do that meeting where we pick the candidates, then we're going to sit down and I'm going to have suggested interview questions for you guys. And so I'll provide those questions, and then I'm going to want input from y'all about what questions you want to ask, what you think is relevant for this community. And then we'll go through and synthesize those questions down to a reasonable number of questions that we can ask in an hour interview, and then get that approved by you guys, and then I'll develop interview books, and we'll come back and we'll have the candidates on site to be interviewed. And then from that, we do additional backgrounding before you make a recommendation to the board of selectmen, and then we'll do a process with the board. And since I'm not privy to the board at this juncture, I don't know what that process is going to be. I would recommend an interview process with the board, and then perhaps a public event where the final candidates are interviewed by the public. That's an option. And so when I'm giving my advice on these different items, nothing's in stone. I mean, again, it's going to depend on your specific community, what's going to work here. And again, you guys are going to know better than I do. So those are my suggestions. And so that's kind of how the process would flow. And you probably have questions, and I'm probably going to answer them when I get to your guys' specific questions. So let me get to a couple of things real quick. Okay, so suggested advertising placement. So some of the places we advertise, and these are on the website, the Regional Police Chiefs Association, the Mass Chiefs Association, PERF, IACP, and then the Women's Law Enforcement, National Association of Women's Law Enforcement Executives, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and then the FBI Academy Associates. So we've been advertising these folks for years. We get on their site regularly, and these are some of the sites. So you may have other sites that we're not aware of. You say, hey, what about this site? Well, we should talk about that as well. Okay, when we talk about recruiting and finding candidates, there's a couple different ways to do that. And this is just an illustration of an internet tool that I purchased for more money than I care to talk about. And so I did a search before I came here on Milford and the surrounding area, and for the rank of lieutenant and above, and there's 5,065 candidates in Massachusetts that are lieutenant or above. And then 397 that have indicated in their LinkedIn profile that they're willing to relocate. And so that's not definitive, that's just a starting point. And so instead of advertising on these sites that everybody applies, we're going to look at what you guys are looking for in the next chief, and then we're going to go narrow it down and find the chief. That. Okay, so background, you're going to have a question on background investigations, I'm sure. So we do a comprehensive background screening process and a report through First Check. And First Check provides Social Security trace, address history, driving history, credit report, federal criminal history search, national criminal search, wants and warrants, the Homeland Security search, sex offender registry, criminal county, whatever county they live in, and then the education verification is a separate thing, but we do that as well. So we don't have someone who says they have a master's in public administration and they really have, AA and art. You know what I mean? We want to be whatever they said it is. And then we do a comprehensive internet search where you're going to have all the articles on the individuals that we bring in front of you to look at. The good stuff and the bad stuff. And there may be people that we recommend that have some bad stuff because, a 25, 30-year career, there's going to be some hiccups along the way. Hopefully not too many, and hopefully it's not someone it's going to be too debilitating, it's going to be a problem. Certainly don't want to put you guys in that position. So your questions. So the chair sent me a list of questions. The first question was, what level of experience with law enforcement executive searches of similar nature have you had in the past 10 years? I think I shared our track record earlier, and I can do that again if you see that again, but we've done 20 police chief searches in the past 3 years. That's more than any other firm in the country. Within those, the examples of customized services that we've offered, aside from doing your standard search where you come out, you take the input, you advertise, then you do one interview, you pass it along to the next person. That's an easy search, right? Customize the part that really you get into the nitty gritty, into what the community's looking for and what they really want. You do the community engagement. You do community surveys, and you can do department surveys. And I found the department surveys to be a particular help to the incoming chief, whether they're an internal candidate or an external candidate, because they may, even the internal candidates, hear stuff that they didn't know was going on inside the department. And the community may want something completely different than you think. And so I found, in my past clients, have found value in those surveys. And if you guys choose to do the surveys, we do a comprehensive report on both surveys. And if we do community engagement, we include the community engagement piece. in that report, and we present that back to you. We've also done leadership training for particular cities and career development, as well as executive coaching for new police chiefs. So another question, what experience have you had with law enforcement executive searches in Massachusetts? The short answer is none. Not from here. Have experience. I've been here. I went to SMIP in Boston. I was there for 3 weeks. I've done many searches where I've had candidates from Massachusetts. Several really good candidates. I placed a couple Massachusetts candidates out of state. Done searches last year I did 4 searches in New York. And just recently finished Grand Rapids, Michigan. So those are the closest. So success rate of having one of your top 3 to 5 candidates recommendation be selected for permanent placement. 100%. Haven't had to redo a search. Everyone was recommended has been placed. I had one search in New York where they changed the rules on us. It was civil service city, and the civil service commissioner said, do this, this, and this, and we did that. And then the mayor went to a point, and she said, and this. And it messed everything up by 6 months. And so that search, they ended up doing an internal hire. So another question about, the other thing about the retention. So I know your most recent chief was here a long time, and in smaller towns and cities in this state, there's a lot of longevity. It's not like that everywhere else in the country. So the national average for a tenure of a police chief is just under 4 years. Okay, that's nationwide. So I can't give you stats on that. I can tell you that everyone that I've placed in the past 4 years is still in place. So recruitment strategy. So we work with the search committee to finalize the position profile, and it's really important, because when we finalize that profile, it's like, hey, this is what we want in the next chief, and we're going to go try and get as close. And it's going to be Superman or Superwoman, right? It's going to be the best of the best of the best, and we're going to try and get as close as we can to that. So I can't underestimate how important that is. And so we developed a brochure and other advertising materials, a short ad, and then we place all that and we start our recruiting strategy. And so one part is we do original research, and original research in the form of just in your state, there's 117 towns and cities with more than 20,000 residents, right? So of all size and complexity. You know, some of those smaller towns are not going to be a person who's a captain or a lieutenant in those jobs probably couldn't do this job, right? In some of them. And some of them they could. And so what we do is spend a lot of time on the phone, on the internet, reaching out to those folks. We do the research, identify the folks that we're going to recruit, and then we recruit. And we recruit with a phone call, with an email, with the brochure, and we send 3 different emails. We send one that says, hey, I know you're a chief of this big city, you're probably not going to come to Milford, but if you know somebody who's interested, or you have a colleague who's ready to be a chief, send them our way. Then we send another one to someone who's definitely going to be a candidate, who's going to be interested. And we say, hey, apply. Call us, we'll give you more information. And then we send one, when we're not really sure if they're going to apply or not, we say, hey, if you know someone, send it, and if you're interested, apply. So we send those 3 different emails, and we identify those, we track those on an Excel spreadsheet, and we track the responses, and then when there's a response, we follow up. I mean, that's a lot of time goes into that, and making sure that we're tracking, so you know that we're not just being a firm that posts ads and then prays that someone puts in for it. Because some firms do that, unfortunately. So So we do that, and we have conversations with those potential candidates. Because when you're at the age where you're going to make the police chief, a lot of us have kids in high school, right? Not a lot of folks who's got sons and daughters in high school are moving to Milford. It's not going to happen. I mean, so we get that up front. And not that we're going to eliminate anybody, but we need to let them know, hey, this is what's expected. You know, and if the expectation from this committee is that the person, or from the rules, whether they live in the city or near the city, then we need to make that clear so we don't have a chief commuting in from an hour and a half away, right? So, and I showed you the proprietary LinkedIn tool that we use, and it's very valuable not only for spotting candidates, but I call candidates who aren't interested, but they've got a buddy or a friend or a colleague who might be. And then we have our personal contacts. I left out that both Mark Helms, my colleague, and I both graduated from the FBI Academy. I graduated from SMIT. Mark graduated from California Community College. So he's a fellow on the Police Foundation and board of directors for the Cal Chiefs. So a lot of contacts nationwide. If you look at just the 20 searches we've done, 20 searches, 40 candidates per search on average, 800 candidates. And then they told 2 friends and told 2 friends. I mean, we really reached the entire law enforcement community. So, yeah, so we do that intensive marketing, intensive follow-up to make sure that we get a rich and deep pool of candidates for you guys to look at. And then the next question was, explain the candidate screening and assessment process. So, in civil service, there are a lot of assessment tests, right? I think more on the East Coast, there's a lot of assessment tests than on the West Coast. So we assess candidates, but we don't do it with an assessment test. We do it with an assessment process. So we review the candidates' resumes, cover letters, against the education experience and traits that we advertise. We review against what Milford needs them to do. We interview the candidates. We develop a list of screening criteria, and we need to do that with this group here, and what we're really looking for. So even after we have the brochure, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about what are the main points we need to hit, because there may be 20 things, but 3 of them are crucial. If you don't have these 3, you can't be the chief here, right? So we have to know that. And then we look at all that. And then we talk about candidate evaluation exercise. So before the candidates that you select to be interviewed come on site, what I like to do in my process is have advanced interview questions. So it tells you how they write, whether they're a planner, and the depth of their thought. So writing skills are important for a chief, and thought process is equally as important. So we do advanced interview questions, and I try and get input from the search committee on these types of questions, but I have some ideas for that. We do a disc management assessment on their leadership style, and that's more informative for you folks as you assess and recommend. And then you can't understate how these candidates that we bring in are going to be evaluating us too, right? Because it is a competitive market right now, and it really is. And candidates want to be in a good situation. So if they see a bunch of bad press or negative press about the process, it's going to be more challenging to get folks familiar. As far as, I think I already addressed background investigations. I addressed that sufficiently. And the staff will be assigned to the search. background, etc., myself, and Chief Mark Helms. So, I think I covered that. And so Mark has a master's degree in public administration, undergrad, he's been a chief for a couple cities. His most recent searches were Payson, Arizona, and Roanoke Park, California. FBI Academy grad. I told you about his fellowships. I spent my entire career at Martinez PD in the Bay Area, a city about the size of Milford. And we had a suburban community, the waterfront, wetlands. And I was the chair of the Police Officers Association for the state, for our region. And I personally conducted more than 50 searches and 20 police chief searches. And so that, and I have a, don't hold it against me, but I'm an attorney as well. I have a law degree. Number of qualified candidates. So like I said, 30 to 60, it's going to depend. And it can be anywhere in between those numbers. So if we end up with, say, 35, we'll probably screen, we'll look at all the resumes, obviously, and we'll probably interview between 16 and 25 of those folks. Not you guys, but our firm will interview those folks, screen them, Skype with them, and be able to intelligently talk to you guys about those particular candidates and why we recommended the 7 or 8 that we recommended. So the average timeline required for a process to start to completion. So some firms will say they can do it in 90 days, some firms will say 120 days, and it really depends on the level of community engagement that you want to have. If we're not going to do community engagement, the short answer is how fast we can get started, and we can present candidates to you within 60 days.
In what, Gary?
Within 60 days, we can present candidates if there's not a community engagement piece. You know, and there actually could be a community engagement piece and do it that way. We'd have to do it where we weren't using the community engagement input for the brochure, we'd be using it for the selection criteria. So add that information to your guys' information for that screening criteria. And we could probably still do it in that short process. But after we present candidates, we want to do interviews within 2 weeks. Because if we get folks to agree to come and be interviewed, then we want to get them while the iron's hot. You know, we also ask candidates if they're in any other process, because we've had candidates in multiple processes, and it can be a problem. And we've dealt with that. So maximum 120 days. I would anticipate that long. I think we can do a lot faster. Next question: level of engagement that you will maintain with the committee. So, and it says be specific. So potentially we can have a lot going on here with surveys and community input sessions. Brochures and ads and all this stuff, right? So my philosophy is communicate early and often, right? So the search committee should be involved in every aspect of this search, be aware of every aspect of the search. If there's a question that you have, you got to speak up, because I'm not a mind reader, but I'm a collaborator, and I want your input. I want to make sure that the collective voices here, at a very minimum, the collective voices here are heard, and that those voices are honored in this process. So my expectation is if we do community engagement, that I'll lead that process, and I'll be at the microphone talking to the community, working the flip charts, but I would like a couple committee members, at least a couple, 2 at each meeting, 2 or 3, so that if community has questions that I can't answer, you could answer. And that's something for a later discussion. But like the ad placements that I suggested, and I said that I want your input on those. We'll get a list together of what we decide. You'll have that before I post the ads. So I want you guys involved in every aspect. I want you to review the short ad. Overall, I want this process to be a positive experience, not just for the town of Milford, but for the committee members who are volunteering their time to be here. So I want this to be a positive experience for all of you. And then, of course, I want a positive result, right? That we send qualified candidates to the board so they can they're the hiring authority, they're going to make the decision. Anything I haven't addressed that you guys would like to hear more about?
We can get to the questions as soon as you finish, Gary.
Yeah, I think that was all the questions.
Yeah, 11 questions, yeah.
And so,
Want to wrap up with something and then we can go to...
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So why public sector search and consulting? Okay. We're a firm comprised of police chiefs. We're experienced in searches for police executives. We're experienced working with search committees. We know and understand the national market for this position. We have a proven track record in this space. We're fair, inclusive, and honest. We're going to respect your traditions and history. And all of our placements are still with their organizations. So I feel like we're a safe bet for you guys. And we got the energy, the drive, and the time to do it. Right now, I didn't address this, but we have one other police chief search right now. We just finished Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Redmond, Washington. And we just went under contract for Wheat Ridge, Colorado, just outside of Denver.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I'll take any other
Okay,
questions.
we'll go to questions now. Scott?
So first off, thanks for making the trip, and we appreciate the presentation. So you focused on really a couple of things, a couple of points you really started to drive through your presentation. One was, the one I really wanted to talk to you about was really around that community engagement piece through that process. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, so we have a charter that we're bound by as far as what our process looks like. Just to sort of level set, we are not the appointing authority,
Right.
the hiring authority. We're going to narrow this down to, and ultimately, we're charged with presenting 35 candidates to the Board of Selectmen,
Yes.
who are the ultimate appointers of the successful communities. Talk to me a little about what have been some of the positive and potential negative impacts that you've seen from going through that community engagement process, and giving us a little insight into what it looks like.
Sure.
My picture that popped in my head is the high school auditorium, and you're standing there at a podium like that, and there's people asking questions. But
Right.
can you kind of paint that picture a little more for us, and what's been your experience? What are some of the, hey, this was a really great experience, hey, this is what
Right.
was not such great things?
So the not so great experiences have been when nobody shows up.
Okay.
So we've had events where 6 or 8 people show up, and it doesn't really seem like it's worth everybody's time to do that, although you got 6 people's voices heard that weren't heard, and so there's some merit to that. The positive experiences have been in cities where there's been 20, 30, 40, 50 people show up, and they're very passionate about the issues that have arisen in their community, and they're voicing what they want in the next chief. And they're saying, we need a chief that can do that can engage the community, a chief that can speak with one voice instead of tell one person one thing and another person something else. And so we've had that kind of dialogue back and forth. And we usually would do that in this process. It would be, the search committee would do that obviously before you made any kind of recommendation. So that's really on the front end of the search. So to get the community's input. And the positive from the community, even when a person they wanted to get hired didn't get hired, the community came up to me afterward, after the search process, and said, hey, thank you for doing that search process and including the community. At least we had an opportunity to have our voices heard. And so that's really what you're buying for that service, is because none of us can control what the hiring authority is going to do, right? The hiring authority is going to go through their process and have a rational reason for the person they select. But what we can do is offer that opportunity to members of the community that wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. Did that answer your question?
Chris, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
At what point do you, if at all, start doing face-to-face with these candidates? I mean, obviously, you're not going to meet 30 people face-to-face, but at what point do you actually meet with them face-to-face and ramp up the interview process?
Right. So we screen via either WebEx or Skype. And so I'm going to see them, I'm going to talk to them several times, and then the formal interview with me, I'll be in a suit, they'll be in a suit, but it'll be a teleconference. And done it all over the country. It's really the standard in the industry, unless you're hiring a firm from Boston. So they're not going to be able, because all your candidates aren't going to be from this area. Some of them will be, and everything's really done on WebEx.
Great, thank you.
We do touch them more than once or twice, though. I mean, we do follow-ups, and if we have any inconsistencies in resume, what they said, the background check, we go back and do another interview to try and clarify, in a non-adversarial way, make sure we have the story right.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I asked this to the last group because they brought it up, and to be honest with you, they brought up a good question. I'm going to ask the next person too as well. Is that obviously identifying the culture of our town and having a good mesh between what a chief candidate will be with what our town is really looking for. Do you have a particular process in which you engage our community, ask business people, town government, what are you looking for in a chief? Not just the 7 of us, I don't know how to run a committee. 12, thank you.
Sure.
Not just us 12, but the other members of the community to get a feeling of whether, because you know all these candidates already, because you maybe interviewed them for other jobs, whether they would be a good fit for
So we kind of do it the other way around. Instead of interviewing them afterwards, after I know the candidates, what we do is when I come and meet you initially, we have our meeting, right? The initial get to know the culture. On that particular trip, I would want the town, someone from HR or from the town, to set up those meetings with those stakeholders, the business owners, the police officers, all the different groups you just spoke of. And so that we would do an initial interview right at the outset of the search to try and get that feel for that culture and to know the town, and it'll help us when we're in our search.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Donato?
Couple of questions. Jerry, how do you verify resume content? And you mentioned a variety of internet searches that you do on the candidate. Do you do interviews like prior supervisors, neighbors, co-workers, HR file reviews?
Right. So in an interview process, that's part what you just described, the last thing you said about interviewing the coworkers and the neighbors, that's part of the background process, right? So nobody's going to interview those folks on the front end, because a lot of these folks that are putting in for jobs, they don't want anyone to know they're putting in for the job yet.
No, I understand that.
Right. So that
I'm going to do interviews of those types of people.
that happens on the back
Personal.
on the back end.
Okay. We're going to ask you to send us a copy of your proposed contract,
Okay?
all right? Along with any issues that you see. We have 2 documents that we have to work with, and that is a job description and a bylaw. And you need those 2 documents in front of you. And if you notice any costs that you haven't thought of, if you would just give us an estimate of what you think it would cost for those additional items.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's not a problem. And on that same note, I would want to know from the group if they were interested in that community engagement piece or the surveys at some point.
Yeah.
If you guys select our firm, then
If you would just put that into as an additional cost, if we wanted that, it would cost X amount of dollars.
certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mike?
Thank you for coming to the meeting with us.
Thank you.
Question with regards to the surveys.
Yes.
The survey and community survey, I think.
Mhm.
Without having those in place, because I understand that they're optional, what is your process, if any, of gathering that information?
So, both the community and police department survey touches on issues that I'll ask in those stakeholder meetings. So, Chris talked about meeting with business owners and other community members and community groups and advocacy groups and police officers. I'll ask some of those same questions and get that information. But I think that the value in the police survey and the community survey is getting information that people aren't going to give you when they're looking at you right in the eye. They're going to say, hey, there's this issue, and that's something that I can share with the new chief, or you guys can share with the new chief. And I've had some new chiefs use that survey as the starting point for a strategic plan, because he realized they didn't know that their RMS system was completely outdated. The board didn't know it. The previous chief never told them. But the dispatchers, the civilian employees, and the sworn working inside were like, hey, our RMS doesn't work anymore. It's not operating together. Stuff goes into a black hole. And so that's the kind of stuff that can really identify and address.
That's certainly you can glean that information from those surveys.
You
But
can.
without having the survey, and you mentioned having these meetings, stakeholder meetings, which I firmly agree with. However, I don't know, when you say meetings, that's plural. How many do you plan on having? Because being from the public sector, working in the police industry, you're not going to get a bunch of cops to come to a public meeting and say X about their police department, whether it's positive or negative.
Right. Those meetings are generally not public. In my experience, it's been I would get together with you and say, I'm available these times, and you'd schedule a group at 9, 10, and 11. I have a 45-minute sit down with maybe the officers, the sergeants, the command staff, the civilian employees, and I've done, my schedule for Wheat Ridge, and I'm 6 in the morning because that's when the graveyard shift gets off. 6 in the morning until 10 at night. So we're going to be here getting input from everyone. And so it's a matter of scheduling those identifying and then scheduling those groups and working with the folks that, they report to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Jody?
Could you share with us, how do you try to ensure there's a diversity in the applicant pool?
Yeah, that's a good question. So part of it is that you show that you're advertising in the right places. And so if you advertise in groups that seek to advance minorities and women, then people that go to that website see your firm as a firm that promotes, is inclusive to minorities and women. So our firm, the average diversity rate for public sector firms is about 30%. And of the 20 police chief searches that I've done, ours is 60%. And some of it's because of the areas that we were in, but we bring a diverse pool of candidates in every search we've done. We haven't had an all white male search. So we really work hard at reaching folks. And one of the things we do is, I mean, I go to the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives Conference. I hired their past president, Cedric Alexander, who's on CNN all the time, to come to Grand Rapids and help me do community engagement. So through those contacts, I hear of folks who are looking for work, looking to be a chief, and that deepens the pool and provides you guys more people to evaluate, see if they fit in this community, and both women and minorities.
Anybody else? Eddie? No. Dr. Heller? David? Donato? Chris? Nothing? Chris? Okay. Okay, so thank you for a very nice presentation. We appreciate it. So like I've said to everybody, at the end of each firm interview, we do the ratings.
Yes.
And then we'll do the ratings for the third applicant. Then those ratings will be brought back to Town Hall tomorrow. They'll be tabulated by the HR professional and 2 lawyers. And then at 2 o'clock, we'll open up the envelope and some of the members will be present and we'll know what the price is. So if the price is within, number one now, if the price is within 50,000, we can move forward. If it's not, then we have to go to number 2. So I'll be calling you within a day or so to let you know what's happening.
Great.
And it's been a pleasure talking with you and good luck.
Well, thank you, and I just want to thank you all for indulging me tonight and allowing me to be here without a tie and a jacket. Normally, that's how you'd see me in a tie and a jacket. I do appreciate your time and your thoughtful questions.
Okay, good luck with your arm, okay?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Do you want those pamphlets back? Here we go.
Oh, yeah, if no one's married to them, they're kind of my props. Any feedback on the pamphlets or on the website? Anyone visit my website? Publicsectorsearch.com?
I do like the brochures, and your graphic designer does a nice job on that. Did a nice job.
Thank you. I'll let her know.
Okay, let's finish up the rating on this one, okay? You're going back tomorrow morning, right?
I am, sir.
Okay. Long trip. Thank you, Karen. Yeah. Well, I get it on the resume, but that's okay. Takes some time. It takes some time. Yeah. It takes all right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, good luck, all right? Yeah, bye-bye.
All right. Have a good day.
All right, not bad. 8:30, not bad. Okay. Okay. All right, guys, all set on the scoring? Yes. Okay, thanks. David, all set on the scoring?
Yeah.
Okay. Get ready, because you're gonna make the fourth presentation. We wanna see, we wanna hear what you have to say.
What's that?
You're gonna have the fourth presentation. Yeah, one more, Andy. All right, let's see if we can get Andy. There's a couple members over there. Tell them to come out. Yeah. Richard, Dick, Dr. Allen, we're gonna get started, okay? We're gonna get started, all right? Yeah, okay. They probably went to the boys' room. Yeah, you know what? Can you please call me? Yeah, I need to get set up. Thanks, Maureen. Charles Hale.
You eat any coffee? Well, they don't get shots.
Andy, thanks for all your help, okay?
No problem. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. One doesn't use any brochures, the other one does graphics, and all different perspectives. Makes the wheel go around. You know, I think the thing is, you know, probably graphics is not, but I look back in the years when I was looking for, you know, different positions and what, you know, you saw an ad and it sounded interesting, you know, you didn't need a brochure to tell you, you made an inquiry and you went from there, you know, if it sounded good and whatever, and it, you know, then you pursued it, but, you know, it wasn't, you know.
Very different perspective.
Where do you want? Hey, Charles, how are you? Hi. How are you?
Sheldon Cohen.
Okay.
How do you do?
So, set up your email.
So we're not gonna do this.
No?
Okay, we're just gonna talk. So, yeah, we have a bunch of handouts. So my first thought is, we can move the chairs on this side of the table and maybe just take that. You want to stand? Okay. That's fine with me. Okay. Yeah? Okay. So let me just, a few preparations here. We do have a handout. You need to pay attention, there will be a quiz afterwards.
Sheldon, do you need a microphone?
Oh, I don't think so. Can everyone hear us? It's a fairly small room.
Okay. All right. Make yourself comfortable if you have handouts, pass them out now if you can. And we just have one more person to...
Just by way of introduction,
Yeah, okay, Ed, let's go.
And Sheldon's going to handle the first 15 minutes or so. He's got a handout for you. We chose not to use a PowerPoint because sometimes it can be more distracting than otherwise. It certainly is for me. So he's going to give you a handout that would be our PowerPoint if we were to use it, but we thought it would be easier to talk from that. And that way you have the same information right in front of you. And take notes, whatever.
Okay.
After Sheldon has finished that part, I'm going to address the 11 questions, I believe, that
Yes.
Dino sent to us last week. And go through those, that'll probably take another 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll open up for questions from the community.
All right, yeah.
Now,
Do you have a couple of questions?
Yeah, we have.
and disclosures.
Okay, thank you.
I have, I'm both vision and hearing impaired. So I have to use a magnifying glass to read things. So Sheldon's going to read the questions for me. I've read them already. We talked about it.
Okay.
But
So,
rather than have me sit here and look like a dummy with a magnifying glass in front of my hand, Sheldon will read the questions to me.
all right. So
And
Charles,
I'll try my best to answer them.
all right.
So why don't you go on that side since I can.
So Charles, Sheldon, let me just say a few words before we start, all right? Welcome to Milford. We appreciate meeting with you. This is a very important task, and we're trying to find the right firm. I'd like to present the committee to the left, Dr. Heller, David Brutch, Donato Nero, Judy Macelia, Scott Harrison, Mike Paghetti, Chris Moran, Ed Bertarelli, Chris Fitz, and myself, Dino. So with that, we have about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll have questions for follow-up, okay?
That was it. I saw the cars in the parking lot. I thought, oh my God, it's Tuesday. Look at the bingo tonight.
No, bingo's tomorrow, 12 o'clock, if you want to come.
Well, anyway, thank you for inviting us today. This is a big job, and we're honored to be here because we want to be part of it. And I think it's great that you folks have volunteered your time to spend the countless hours that's going to go into the process. So good luck on that. Whether you hire us or somebody else, I think it's important, and we hope you get the right person for the job. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Good evening. We chose to skip the PowerPoint on screen because we feel like there's a different kind of engagement when we can look you in the eye rather than face that way. We know we have limited time. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm just going to pick out a few key points. Let me say at the beginning, there are two ideas that we would like you to keep in mind as you go through your meeting with us today and through the process. Number one is the idea of professional responsibility. We don't tell you what to do. Our professional responsibility to your committee and the town is to do everything we can with you to make sure that you have the best available information on the candidates and that you as a committee are as well equipped as possible to make a prudent decision for the town. That's number one. Number two is what we call differentiators. You have three firms here tonight. They're all competent firms. We would like to talk about a few things which suggest why we think RMA, our company, would be a very good fit for the town of Milford and the community. So I'm just going to do a little show and tell. The first page inside, typical attributes of a successful chief of police. Chuck's been doing this for 38 years. So there's 38 years of experience which says, what are those attributes? I would like to point out, you'll get good candidates. We'll talk about that later with the Q&A with Chuck. But I would like to point out two of these bullets in particular. One talks about professional development. Pretty much everybody who applies here is going to be qualified. Okay? Professional development says, what distinguishes, again, what's the differentiator among the candidates? For example, there are 3 leading professional programs in the United States that folks who have ambitions to be a police chief go through. One of these 3. It's sort of like the Harvard, Yale, and Princeton of getting ready to be a chief. One is the FBI National Academy. The second is the Northwestern University Center for Public Safety. And the third is the Southern Police Institute. So when the applications and resumes first come in, sure, everybody has 20 or 25 years experience, etc. So you say to yourself, what's the differentiator? One differentiator says, has this person made the effort to prepare themselves, with or without the support of their agency? Have they gone to one of those 3 Ivy League programs, if you will? The other bullet is the one at the bottom, which talks about professionally active and respected. One of the things to look at is, has the candidate been involved in their state, regional, national organization? We did an assessment center for the city of Salem 2 weeks ago, well, last month. 2 of our 3 assessors, chiefs in Massachusetts. One of them was the past president of the Mass Chiefs Association. The other was the immediate past president of the alumni organization of the FBI National Academy. And these guys were both chiefs of departments and towns of under 10,000 people. Okay? But that says, why are they so outstanding? Because they care about the profession. They've made the effort to be leaders. Okay? About RMA on the next page, 2 things right at the top. The company's been in business since 1981. All that we do is public safety. And by the way, the second bullet, Chuck and I first hooked up when I was working for the Massachusetts Municipal Association. RMA has worked in Massachusetts since 1981. We know the territory, okay, one way or another. We only do local government work. We've never been sued over anything. We've never had a process go south. Quite to the contrary, we have clients who re-engaged us time and again over 20 years or longer. Okay? About Charles Hale. Let me pass this. Chuck wrote up his page here. I wrote up my page. He's a lot more modest than I am. Chuck is nationally known in the field and has been for a long time. This is his book, oddly enough, on the Assessment Center Handbook for Police and Fire Personnel. It's now in its 4th edition. The review, as we noted in our proposal to you, from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, which is perhaps the leading institution of its kind in the country, said, this is a must-read. This isn't something which Chuck did on the, in his garage. This is now in its 4th edition. He has another book on police patrol administration with Prentice Hall. You may have heard of them, now in its 3rd edition. So I'm just going to pass this around, take a look at it, share it this evening. The other thing I want to point out is the last bullet. One of the questions in the RFP sort of talked about, and we'll get to it later, what have we done in the way of police chief searches? Well, just in the last four years or so, Salem, Gloucester, Peabody, Beverly, Salisbury, Newton, Stoughton, and others around the United States. So again, we know about police chiefs in Massachusetts. Myself, I came here 46 years ago to be the first assistant town manager in Andover. I've been involved in municipal public safety. I got started as a kid in 1967. So I taught at UMass Lowell and police administration, etc. About our approach, we're very careful from day one in terms of identifying the unique characteristics of the town of Milford. One of the things that we will do, as we pointed out in the proposal, I'm trying to keep an eye on the clock, is speak with a broad range of people in the town. For example, the fire chief. We may want to see 1 or 2 members of this committee one-on-one. Okay, that's up to you. We'll do it your direction. The superintendent of schools, the highway surveyor, all right, a representative of the Chamber of Commerce, maybe a representative of a community organization. Because guess what? The police chief is a leading figure in the town. And we can't do our job properly for you if we're not talking with that range of folks. All right? And the final bullet is, I live an hour away. I'm up 495. I live right north of 495 and 93. If Dino were to call at 10 in the morning and say, can you come to a meeting tonight, as long as I'm not with another client, I'll be here. That's not an issue. Okay? About the assessment center, the exercises that we do when we get to that point are based on what comes out of the initial interviews and the job analysis. those are the things that you tell us are most important to your committee in the town of Milford. We gave you illustrations of the proposal. We will refine that with you. We only use assessors who are outstanding people in the field, past presidents of the Mass Chiefs, etc. So when we talk about evaluating candidates, we're very, very careful about that. The other thing to say again, this is not a pickup band. Chuck and I have worked together for 38 years. We worked in Massachusetts, Connecticut. Last week we were doing an assessment center for the city of Savannah, Georgia Police. Okay? The week before that, we have a nice relationship with the township of Toms River, New Jersey, 95,000 people. Again, lieutenant's process. So we know each other, we know how we work, we know how to deliver a good job for you. So again, just for this part of the presentation, thank you to the committee and the town for your consideration of our services.
Well, that was great, Sheldon. It kept on schedule. It was hard for me to keep my mouth shut, you know,
Okay, I'm just going to pass out the Q&A.
Sure.
We put this on a little letterhead and
Good question, by the way. Somebody's given a lot of thought to this question. I hope I do as much job as you can.
Charles, we have all outstanding people here, but the HR person and Jody, who works at MIT, developed those questions.
great.
I guess MIT is like Princeton, right? Almost. No, I think quite so. Oh, yes, okay, there are a couple of members that absolutely will give them the information. Thank you.
Fire away, Sheldon.
Okay, question number one. What level of experience with law enforcement executive searches of similar nature have you had within the last 10 years? Please share examples of customized services you have offered to other municipalities.
Well, I think you already named several of them, but, and by the way, each one of those was a customized service. Because I should say that every time we start a process like this, we start with a clean sheet of paper. Because no two towns are alike, no two police departments are alike. Our job initially is to find out what it is that you folks see as important qualities, important attributes that the new chief must possess. As far as the numbers that Sheldon talked about, Beverly and Peabody and Salem and a bunch of others, every year we're out here doing one or two. Now, we're not a search firm, we do a lot of other things beside that, but we've been doing searches on a regular basis here in Massachusetts, going back to the early 80s, quite frankly, right? Yeah. So we've got a good track record, and Sheldon, I think the singular thing that's important, we've never had a job that went sour. We've never had a job where the police chief, in fact, every one we were talking about earlier, every chief that we've helped appoint in the last 10 years is still in the job. That's remarkable.
Okay, number two. What experience have you had with law enforcement executive searches in Massachusetts?
Same answer, I think. We've been doing this here in Massachusetts since 1981. When Sheldon called me up and asked me if I'd be willing to come out here and throw my hat in the ring, I did that. And the interesting thing, in those days, you may or may not be aware of it, the assessment center process, which you included, was brand new. Almost nobody did them. Almost nobody knew what they were, to tell you the truth. And Sheldon did one of the first ones out here, and with him and some other people, we've done several since that time. So we're putting a growing process. Today, I'm glad to say that a lot of cities and towns have found that the assessment center be an integral part of the search process, and it's made a difference.
And if I could just add to what Chuck was saying, we did a process for the police chief in the city of Gloucester earlier this same year that was virtually identical to what you've asked for in your RFP. It was a job analysis, a national search, working with a committee, going through 2 or 3 iterations and going to 10 and 6 and so forth and so on, doing the assessment center, doing deep background checks on the 2 finalists who are both outstanding people. So Gloucester is hot off the press, absolutely similar to what you're asking for here.
Not our first rodeo.
Exactly. Okay, number 3. What is your success rate in having one of your top 3
3 to 5 police chief candidate recommendations be selected for permanent placement? Do you track placement retention post-hire? If so, what % remains in the position for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years?
Very easy. Do we track it? No, we don't keep track of it, but we know because of our experience and we're out here all the time. The answer to that is 100%. Every single one is still in the job today.
Okay, number 4. Tell us about the nature of your networking and recruitment strategy.
Well, you know, again, we've been in business for a long time, and over the years, we've developed a very healthy network of city managers, police chiefs, fire chiefs around the country, in cities and towns and local states. And we use that network to help us, first of all, to identify potential candidates, and secondly, to do background investigations, because, you know, when people submit their resume, they give you the names of people who will say good things about it. Well, we don't stop there because we know that. Who else can we talk to that might know this person? You'd be surprised what information you pick up because it's not going to be in the resume. So we go well beyond that. Because we have such a great network of contacts in municipal government, we're able to do that very easily.
And we know from prior engagements, there may be someone who was a candidate somewhere else and didn't get the job for whatever reason, but we know is actively looking. And they may be in Massachusetts, they may be in another state. We'll contact them. We want to do the best for Milford, and if we feel that that individual might be a really good fit here, we will reach out to them on your behalf. Okay, please, number 5, please explain your candidate screening and assessment processes.
Well, the screening is very detailed. When we get resumes, we've already established a profile. The profile comes from the things that you folks in the community talk about. What are we looking for? We put that into a composite. So we have a pretty good reference of what exactly we're looking for. So as we evaluate the resumes as they come in, we measure them against that profile. Because he measures up and who fails to. That process usually ends up with a yes stack, a maybe stack, and a no stack. You start with the yes stack and work from there. From there, we send out a detailed questionnaire. Where do we get the questions and questionnaire? From you. You tell us what's important in your mind. What should the next chief have, possess, do, etc. We build a questionnaire, we send that to the candidates. We get those back. We evaluate them through the same process. How well does that information measure up? And we will find that some people do a great job of responding, others not so much, you know. That, again, narrows the field down. We then sit down with the committee. Now we're down to maybe, what, 10 or 12, maybe 15, I don't know. And we sit down with the committee. Here's what we have. Here's the resumes. Here's the questionnaires. Here's what we think. We talk to this person, this person. We think it should be this person, not that person, maybe that person. Okay? Through that process, after meeting with the committee, we now have probably 5, 6, what I would call finalist candidates. Those then are brought into the assessment center, which is usually a 2 to 2.5 day process, reflected in that book that's shown and passed around. Did you get the one, the assessment center, Campbell? Or the,
this is the assessor's manual for Gloucester.
We usually boil down to 2 or perhaps 3. The very last part, and what's really critical, folks, is that detailed background investigation. And we don't just do that by phone call. We go out in the field. We send one of our people, this particular individual is a retired police chief who I've worked with for 25 years, and he'll go out to the person's hometown. He'll knock on doors. He'll talk to the family. He'll talk to the friends. He'll talk to the associates. And plus doing the financial background, etc., which is routine. And out of that, if there's any skeletons in the closet, we will find that out. And we have found out. We've had candidates we've had to eliminate. That's the very last part. Because we found out something in the background, they had a prior arrest. They had something else happen that was not a good thing. But usually out of that, we're going to help with 2 or 3 candidates. And it's always nice to give the appointing authority of the committees, the mayor, whoever, the option. Candidate A is a really great person if you're looking for this. Candidate B is not a bad guy if you're looking for this. Candidate C, not that much. Okay? The final decision is yours. We simply provide it, show and have the information to allow you to take it.
again, let me just tell you about one or two things that Chuck said. In the RFP, you specified 5 meetings with the committee. One of them was actually tonight, that's okay. And at those meetings, as Chuck was describing, at the very beginning, we would say, what are those criteria for that initial screening? So that's something we would discuss with you. We have consensus on that. So then when we go to business screening, we're screening in the direction that the committee has wanted us to pursue. The other thing to say, we've done our homework. We've read Article 32 in your bylaws. Okay, it's very detailed. Interestingly enough, Gloucester had a very similar ordinance. Okay, who are the members of the committee, how does the committee proceed, how do you make cuts, so forth and so on. So we just want you to know we didn't just sort of show up tonight. Hopefully that was reflected in our written proposal as well. Okay, number 6. Please talk about the candidate evaluation exercises you utilize.
Well, the assessment center.
Yeah, the exercises in the assessment center.
Well, the assessment center, again, is based upon what we perceive to be the needs that you folks are looking for. And again, no two are alike. Every department, every community is a little different. So we try to use the information that you provided during those meetings and during the other conversations that help us build that. Typically, they would consist of some kind of in-depth exercise, some kind of program development exercise, which is a written paper. It might be a budget issue, it might be a policy issue, perhaps a news media exercise, or simulate a news media exerise where that talks to the press about officer-involved shooting or a pursuit gone bad. It could be a staff meeting, whether they're having a first formal staff meeting. Each of those is a role-playing scenario. And we have assessors who play those roles. And so they kind of actually walk through the job, if you will. So what you see is how the candidate will actually respond to each one of those critical scenarios. The in-basket, by the way, is computer generated. We have our candidates actually sitting at a computer terminal and getting the in-basket items electronically. That's the way we work today. Nobody writes things out anymore, they type them out. So that's why they do it. It's a very advanced way of doing it, very modern way of doing it, and the paper is the same way. They actually type out the paper, etc. The one thing I should say, not mentioned here, we also videotape the entire process. And we do that so that if you folks want to come back later and watch them and say, why did they shoot that guy? Well, watch the videos. We did a process a few years back when that exact same thing happened. We had a new city manager. It was an internal process, but he didn't have a good handle on his people. So he had us do an assessment center. And as part of that assessment center, we videoed the entire process. And when it was all said and done, we rank ordered the candidates. And we said, this is the top guy, this is the guy, blah, blah, blah. He said, really? The guy that came on top was the guy that nobody would have guessed. Nobody would have thought. And then we said, well, here's the videos, Mr. City Manager. Go back and watch them. If you have anything else, let us know. Came back the next week, and that's the point.
And the proposal includes examples of the exercises for you to review. Okay, what level of background investigation do you use?
I think I already answered that. Mark Field goes out in the field for 2 to 2.5 days, interviews the candidate, his family, his acquaintances, his neighbors, his bosses, people he has worked for in the past. I say he, I'm sorry, but we do have women as well, so he or she. And when it's all said and done, we've got a very, very thorough body of knowledge about that. We provide that to you in written form, so you can read it yourself and see if you have any questions about anything going on. And obviously, if we see something questionable, we'll mention that to you. It may be a problem, may not, but we let you know about it.
And Mark is also an officer in the Naval Investigative Service, so he's pretty good at that. Okay. Number 8, please tell us about the staff that would be assigned to this search, experience, background, etc.
In the meet, we have other people, but for this particular one, Shelley's the local guy. I'm the guy that has the background in the assessment center and the search process, so we are the folks you're looking at. We're not going to hand off to a intern or something like that. These are the people we'll be working with throughout the entire process.
Okay, number 9, what number of qualified applicants will you expect to receive for this position?
Good question. There was a time when people prided themselves on attracting 100, 150, 200 candidates. Oh, you're going to hire one person. Why do you care how many apply? Okay, I will tell you this, based upon recent experience, you can expect to have somewhere between 30 and 40 candidates apply. And you say, well, that's not many. How many are you going to hire? Really, if you get any more beyond that, it's probably a waste of time. I don't care about the numbers, folks. I look for quality for them. And as long as we emphasize quality, we'll be okay. So the 25 to 30, maybe 35 is probably a good estimate.
Okay. Number 10, what is the average timeline required for this process from start to completion?
I think our proposal said something like 90 to 130 days. That's about average. Can you speed it up? Well, yeah, but do you really want to? This is too important, folks. I don't think you want to take shortcuts. You have an acting chief in place. Presumably that person is going to be on board until the completion of the process. So let's take our time. Let's do it right. 90 to 130 days would be a lot right.
Okay. Number 11, what level of engagement will you maintain with the Milford Search Committee throughout the process? Please be specific in detailing expectations. What is the escalation process if concerns are raised?
I'm going to let Sheldon address that because he's the guy who will do that. He's already talked a little bit about that. I would simply say, at this process, we are building, to this committee, we are building a foundation. And the final candidate is only as good, as strong as that foundation. So the real heart of the process begins, and to a certain extent ends with this committee. And we are simply the facilitators by which this committee does its business. Sheldon?
Yeah, so what I would add is that respecting the role of the committee, we need one person in town to be the project manager.
Or contact.
Again, single point of contact, have a spot, you know, whether it's Dino, whether it's the town administrator, it should be a senior person somewhere in the town government that we can keep in touch with on a regular basis. You know, we're just talking about timetable. We will do everything we can to expedite progress, but again, as one example, typically you need to give people 30 days from the time that a position is advertised to apply. Okay, then the committee has to evaluate the candidates, do follow-up interviews, do the physicals, etc. So in terms of maintaining the contact with the committee, I'm up the road, that's my job. Chuck and I talk almost every day of the week. Okay, we're frequently working together, somewhere at least once a month. So our commitment is to give you whatever support you need for this process to be successful.
What was the escalation mechanism?
The escalation process, if at some point the committee feels for whatever reason that things are not going at an A+ level, he owns the company. Okay, I'm the one that you'll see most often, obviously, but Chuck is a phone call away. And if things are not going exactly how you would like them to go, I can't think of an instance in 38 years where we've had that issue, but here we are.
And we're very proud of the work we've done. Every job that we undertake is a new challenge, and we want to be just as proud of it as we can, as you are, from what comes out of the process. Hopefully by now you've had a chance to talk to a few of our references. If not, I certainly encourage you to do that, because I think that alone tells you a little bit about the quality of our work and our thoroughness and our professionalism and how we try to make each job better than the one before. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll have some questions, okay? Dick?
Yes, sir. I assume when we put the ad in, then all the applicants would go to your facility?
Go to the office and...
Go to your office, they don't come to us at all? And you evaluate them, we are basically blind to them until you give us whatever number we decide on?
We're more than happy to share all of them with you, but really, that's why you hire us to do that for you.
Right.
But we're not gonna hide anything from you. If you want copies of all of them, that will certainly help, but I don't think you do.
No.
We'll give you the ones we think you need to pay the most attention to.
Yeah.
And that's going to be around the number 10, which, you know, the bylaw and the
Right.
RFP talk about.
Jan,
Yeah, Jody?
so you stated that there are typically 30 to 40 candidates that apply for a position. Of those 30 to 40, how many of those are actually the qualified, you know, the qualifications?
I would say the vast majority, because they read these ads. And they're not gonna try to sneak anything together, because they know by now that if you've got a professional firm doing the search process, they're gonna read them out right away. In terms of, I remember one time, I didn't do it, but I know another town in Illinois where the city manager did it on himself. And it turned out after the announcement was made that the guy falsified that. And if you don't do a background check, the local news media will. And they're gonna find out that you don't want to take that chance. So, I've had very few situations where a person actually misrepresented themselves. It may not be what you want to see, but I think they're going to be truthful and honest to faithful to what we've asked for.
So you think there'll be a solid 30 to 40 that actually
I think so.
meet up with qualifications?
Based upon that experience, I'm very comfortable with that.
And our job, as we were saying a minute ago in response to Dr. Heller, is to do that initial screening, working with the committee based on their guidelines, et cetera, and come back with that 10 plus or minus. You know, it's the old saying, the good apples rise to the top. If you can come out of those 30 applications with 10 good people, you're doing real well. And the other thing to say is, you mentioned you want to do a national search. That will give you good candidates. I mean, we've had chiefs come here from other states around the country and excellent candidates. So it's a good thing that you're doing that, because then you can go to sleep at night and say, okay, we as a committee have done everything we can to solicit the universe of potential candidates through the International Association of Chiefs of Police, through a group called NOBLE, National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and a group called NAWLE, the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, and CALEA, the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. Yeah, so we will work with you to cover those bases, so there's, you know, no good stone is left unturned.
Just a quick question, similar Jody brought up before. What percentage the last few searches that you've had involved minority or diversity candidates?
Very few. The last search that we did where we had a minority applicant was Framingham.
Maybe
fire
Gloucester,
chief.
we don't know.
I'm sorry?
Maybe Gloucester. You know, you can't ask people.
Gloucester, I'm sorry, he
Yeah,
right, yeah.
Gloucester was.
We think Gloucester, but you can't ask.
You can't ask.
We can't ask him that, but he appeared to be, I mean, but I would say a very light-skinned African-American, but certainly he was very well qualified. But obviously we say on our ads, minorities when welcome to apply. The fact is we get very few women. And unfortunately, I wish we could do better, because it's always a big plus when you do, but there's a lot of reasons for it, and it doesn't have anything to do with money so much as that, honestly, women have a harder time relocating a family, because they gotta care for the family, the household. We're still in a situation in this society today where women are somewhat in an adverse situation, no matter how hard we try to change that. But we get very few women applicants. We try, but I don't remember. Did we have one?
I don't think none in
I
Gloucester.
think we had one for Salisbury for the fire chief.
Yeah, for the fire chief.
Yeah, but she didn't work out.
Yeah. And the other thing we try and do, related to your question, Doctor, is we try and have diversity among the assessors. So we try and have a woman among the panel of 3 assessors. We try to have a minority among the panel of 3 assessors.
We try to do that regardless of what the candidate pool is like, simply because it sends the right message.
Right.
It sends a message of openness and accessibility. And we think that's very important to tell the world about the town and about our process.
Yeah, Donato?
Gentlemen, we're going to ask you to send us a copy of your proposed contract and to look at our job description for the chief of police, and you've already looked at Article 32.
Yes.
But there are requirements that we have to include in our evaluation process also. And if you see anything in there that you might have, see there to be an additional cost, if you could just tell us what you think that might be.
Yeah, we can't talk about dollars under this Massachusetts Uniform Procurement Act, but just to give you one example, in the RFP and the bylaw, it talks about doing a physical and agility test and a third one. What we suggested in the proposal, and again, not to mention any dollars so nobody gets in trouble, is that you wait to do those tests until you're down to, let's say, your three
Final
finalists.
candidates, we understand.
Exactly. Again, in the background investigations, we gave you a cost per, and again, that'll be a function of how many people you would like Chief Field to do the deep background on.
Usually 2 to 3 is the norm.
Yep.
I'd like to tell you that this presentation was extremely professional,
Thank you.
very impressive, and exceptional. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don. Anybody else?
We also get that kind of phrase.
Anybody else? Yeah, good question.
Gentlemen, thank you. You had talked about the staff that would be assigned, and you mentioned that would be the two of you.
Yeah.
But then you'd also said that you have a retired chief that goes out
Well,
and
Mark, I
does
didn't put his
checks.
name in the resume.
Yeah.
I could have, I apologize.
We included it in the proposal.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's in the proposal, yeah.
Okay.
It's in the proposal, you can read about it in there.
Okay, is that the only other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
and he would be basically for the
Background.
background. Did you mention any of the assessors in the proposal?
Yeah, we did give you examples of some of the assessors.
That would be for the assessors.
They're all highly qualified. We've worked with all of them before. They know our approach. They know what it's like to do role playing and different exercises, etc. So we feel that we can bring you an absolutely class A group of assessors.
And when you mentioned videotaping everything that is done, is that just the assessment center, or is it the interviews that you have?
Oh, just the assessment center.
Okay, all right, very good.
And we bring the camera, we don't charge you for that.
Yeah.
We give everything to you on a little flash drive, and some committee members might want to watch it, some don't care about it, but it's there for backup. You say, well, why would they want that?
We can give you some tapes. We have a lot of tapes. Give us some tapes.
And the other thing on the videos is we always video the candidate's presentation in each exercise. At the town's option, the committee's option, we will also videotape the assessor's evaluation of each candidate in each exercise. So again, that's up to you, but we're prepared to do that however you would like.
Yeah, that way you have first-hand information about why the assessors, what they saw, what they didn't see. We also have had situations where members of the committee actually sit in on the process, and we're certainly open to that. It's entirely up to you, but we would not preclude that.
Yeah, for the police chief's position, just as an example of what Chuck was saying, we did the Salem police chief about 3.5 years ago. The chief, Mary Butler's done a great job. They had the city solicitor sit in on the chief's assessment center. Okay. In Gloucester, the mayor was there half the time. The city chief administrative officer, Jim Destino, was there half the time. So part of what that does is that when the recommendation comes back to the selectmen, for example, you as a committee can say, or the HR director will often sit in. Okay, you as a committee can say, okay, we had a qualified third-party observer from the town. They've reported back to us as the committee that the assessment center was conducted very professionally, so forth. And so on.
Sheldon, we're very fortunate that we have the HR director right in the back of the
Okay.
We had, several years ago, we were doing a fire chief process for a Chicago server, and they asked us if they wanted, if we would like them to video. Could we have our own local network and all that kind of stuff? I said, well, that's fine. So they brought in their cameras, and they're on the dollies and all that kind of stuff. They got the earphones, and they're like Hollywood, man, you know? And we thought that was great. And then at noon time, we got word back that the guys over at the fire station really liked candidate food. They were putting it out over the air.
Oh, my God.
No, that's not what we want. It happens.
Yeah, anything else? Any other questions? Richard, you okay?
Right.
David, you okay?
Yeah, just one. Obviously you have a lot of experience with searches here in Mass.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if there's other current chief of police searches you're doing within Mass or around the country or anywhere that are active, like right
I'm
now.
sorry, what was it?
Other current chief of police searches that we're now doing.
Well, we're not doing any right now. We just finished the Gloucester job last month. Before that was Springfield Deputy Police Chief.
And deputy fire
And
chief
Deputy
in
Fire Chief.
Springfield.
Before that was Plymouth Deputy Fire Chief. Right now, the locker is empty, and we're hoping you're gonna fill it.
Yeah, we're doing several other assessment centers for other ranks. You know, last week Chuck and I and Chief Field were in Savannah, Georgia all week. The week before that I was in Toms River, New Jersey. Back in July we were doing Salem Sergeant, et cetera. So we do these on a regular basis around the country. Chuck is going down to one of our clients, Franklin, Tennessee next week, which is a AAA rated community. Bowling Green, Kentucky, another AAA community that we've worked with for a long time.
Donato, okay? Anything else? Jody? Yeah. Scotty? Mike?
Couple of questions.
Yeah.
Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen. Nice presentation. What sources do you use to reach your national candidates?
Well, you have
a lot of experience in
international
national
police chief. International police chief is number one. New England police chief is number two. As Sheldon mentioned, CALEA, which is the National Organization Accreditation. NOBLE, which is the Black Law Enforcement, and NOLLI, which is the women. So there's like 4 or 5 national groups that will accept your ad, put them out. I think today is everything done electronically. Back in the old days, you had to wait 30 days for the ad to come out in the magazine, right? Now today, it's out in sometimes 24 hours, that quickly. And the other thing about that is that a lot of people will read those, will get it from other places too. So they may not get the one that you utilize, but they'll get it from someplace else. So we're getting out pretty quickly, especially if it's what I call a crime job. And I think Milford is a crime job. It's a very desirable community, a lot of attraction for it. So this is a job that's going to attract people anyway. But those are the ones I would suggest.
And just to emphasize, in a manner of speaking, we're going to start at the beginning. Mass Municipal Association, Mass Chiefs of Police Association.
That's local, I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the national, I just want to make sure we have all the
I know you have the local stuff.
Yeah, so those are the 4 main organizations nationally.
Right. And another question, you mentioned 3 primary sources of professional development. You mentioned the FBI National Academy, and you mentioned people doing it on their own. I don't know how that happens, because to my knowledge, you have to be sponsored by a police chief.
Yeah, so I was just saying, the example I'll give you, we did the fire chief search in Salisbury, Mass, just about 2 years ago. And the fellow who went through the assessment center, I think we had 6 candidates, was a fairly young captain from Nashua, New Hampshire, but a go-getter. As he related it, the deal in Nashua is everything is strictly seniority, okay? He knew that he would never be the chief in Nashua. He enrolled himself in the National Fire Academy, which is the equivalent of the FBI National Academy, at the same time as pursuing a PhD, okay, on his own dime, okay? Usually agencies will sponsor the FBI National Academy or Northwestern or the Southern Police Institute, but it may be a situation where the agency doesn't believe in it or doesn't have the money for it. There's nothing to stop anyone. It's just like if you want to go get a college or a graduate degree, the town may support you, but you're going to pay it, you're going to do it out of your own pocket if you have to.
Yeah, well, it's my understanding that you had to be sponsored in order to.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
And the waiting list was, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. So if nobody would sponsor you, and you didn't have the opportunity to go to the FBI National Academy, does that automatically make you an?
I don't know.
No, non-essential.
It's one piece.
It's one thing.
It's not a determinant.
But I will tell you this, you know, with the limited budgets the police departments have today, they're only gonna sponsor their best people. And if you're one of the best people and you want to go, and not already want to go, you'll get your chance. You really would. Because I don't know the department that I know who wouldn't send somebody to any one of those three places if they had the money and they had the right people. It's an honor to the department.
A lot of times, if you're that qualified of a person, they don't want to send you because they can't afford to lose you.
Well,
It's been an experience.
Yeah, no, and I always,
Some departments, it's all about how you fit with the upper echelon, whether you're an acceptable candidate to them or not necessarily because of your qualification.
I know departments that have lost, if you want to use that word, I use that word, have lost. There's been 6 people to go to other departments with chief of police. I don't think that's a loss. I think it's a credit. The credit to that agency, they have that quality, that caliber of people that people want. So I don't know if police chief that ever would deny a person to go to school saying, oh man, I want to leave that guy. If anything, to say, I hope the guy gets a job.
And again, it's just part of the larger picture. For example, one of our old colleagues, got his master's in criminal justice at Northeastern. There are other programs in the area, with all due respect to them, Northeastern is generally regarded as a high-quality program. Is it the only quality program? No. But it's generally respected. Okay? He wanted to be a police executive. He put himself through the Northeastern bachelor's and master's programs. So again, it's the whole thing of initiative, okay, leadership. So you're looking for those signs. Okay, what are those signs that say this is a person who really wants to prepare themselves to be a chief? I'm sorry.
That's my point, Jay. I think what I got from that is as you're sort of given some higher levels.
Sure.
I think those are very critical. Yeah. My understanding with the FBI Academy specifically is not only do you have to be sponsored, each state only gets so many representatives. Massachusetts only gets 2. So it's not a question of affordability in some cases, or the affordability of that personnel. So I just, as I'm kind of looking at this and sort of doing the assessment on each firm, just making sure that I understand if we're giving higher level of credibility to that, which is certainly a higher level of training.
Yeah.
I see that as a higher level of training versus someone's taking the initiative to say, Milford should have 48 out of 49 police officers that all said, I want to go.
Oh, yeah.
And taking that initiative to say, great, there's 351 municipalities in the state of Massachusetts, we get 2 a year.
There's a little. Yeah, certainly.
Stay in the line, you got some time.
And again, it's why we try to take a broader view.
I can certainly relate to that myself. I was a high school dropout. I dropped out of my high school my senior year, and I spent the next 6 years with the U.S. Marine Corps. I got out of the Marines 1 week before my entire division left Vietnam. I ended up as a patrolman and also got to the police department as a high school dropout. I got my GED while I was a Marine. But for some reason, I don't know why, I can't tell you about it, but when I got out of the academy, I said, I want to go back to school. But I knew I couldn't do it one class at a time. I'll never get it done. I'm too impatient. So I took a full course at Elkington Junior College. I got my associate degree in 2 years. But I said, well, I want to go beyond that. So I transferred to Cal State Long Beach. Again, going full-time, raising a family of 5 children, and working the streets at the top. And I got my bachelor's 2 years after that. And then I stayed on and got my master's 2 years after that. And then I left the department. Now, I probably could have stayed in El Segundo and someday became chief. A lot of guys came and did that after I left, but I had no idea about what I wanted to do. So I went a different route. Sometimes I have second thoughts about that. But that's an example of somebody who wanted to get ahead and wanted to put forth the time and the effort. So when I hear people say, yeah, I really want to go back to school, but I got the wife and the kids, and sometimes I got babysit, I'm thinking, you're making excuses. You are making excuses because you want to do it bad enough, you'll get it done.
That's right.
And I think that.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Sheldon. Great presentation. Sheldon, here are the books, okay?
Okay.
Here are the books.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Charles, tomorrow, I told all the other reps, tomorrow we look at the envelopes, grade everything, number 1, and all that, and then
With the result of the meeting
We'll proceed accordingly. Wait, but thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
And
Thank you for coming.
have a good night, okay? Thank you.
You got your stuff there, Sheldon?
Okay, let's take a few minutes and wrap up the third rating sheet, okay? And then Maureen will take these back to Town Hall. Then tomorrow, 2 o'clock, anybody who wants to attend, free to attend in Attorney Valani's office. And you'll know before I do who's number one. Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. All right, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Some of you will be there. Next meeting in a couple of weeks, and there'll be a few things that we might have to,
You got a date, Gina?
2 weeks from, what's 2 weeks from today?
Is the 10th.
10th, okay? 10th,
9, 10,
the
right?
10th, yeah,
Time,
7 o'clock,
7.
yeah.
Anything going to happen other than opening the envelope between now and the 10th? Okay. No awarding of contract, signing
No, we
documents,
can't,
nothing?
I think we can, Charles and Rick are gonna talk about it tomorrow. I think this, we make a recommendation, I think the selectmen award the contract.
Wait a minute. You gotta, I think you should discuss this with us.
Well, that's whatever the law is, whatever the bylaw, whatever the,
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
we come first.
yeah, I
And then
know.
you do whatever else has to be done to meet
Yeah,
the law.
and I would like it like that. I told Rick and Charles, so they're gonna let me know later this week.
Okay, then come back to the committee,
Yeah.
explain what happened,
Sure.
and, we're done.
And you can ask them tomorrow, you'll be there, so both of them will be there, Maureen will be there. If you have a particular question, ask Charles and Rick. You got them right there, so ask them. Okay?
I think we got it.
So, September 10th. If anything changes, I'll let you know. And, Maureen, okay, we're all set to pass it in. Did a great job, great questions. Took 3 hours right on time, and, you should be, you should feel good for yourself. And, moving in the right direction.
First group.
Yeah, the first one was Harvard Group International. The second one, Public Sector Search. And the third one, Resource Management Associates.
Everybody's got their name on the top too.
Yeah, I thought we weren't, Maureen, I thought we were, and Mr. Chairman, I thought we were adding our names to the waivers.
I think we have one after.
I did.
I did.
We're
I think
gonna
we
have
have
to put them on the master sheet, so I just want to make sure that we have everybody's sheets.
Got to follow everything to the T, you know.
Good talking to us.
If it's the first time in interviewing people for 20 years, when you do an assessment, in a group like this, you never put your name on it, especially when you're getting it to a certain level. So that's not that it has anything to do with Maureen, but no, it's not, oh, what did Scott do?
Yeah.
What did Chris do? All right?
Towns are
Especially
different.
now that it's written
Yeah,
down.
towns are different. Okay, pass them in, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Scott, seconded by Chris. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.